What's up, everyone, and welcome to episode 172 of the Arc Junkies podcast. In today's episode, former guests Ryan Eubank and Jesse Srpan return to the show, along with first-time guest Kyle Linko, who teaches at Career Technology Center of Lackawanna County in Scranton, Pennsylvania. We cover a lot of great information in this episode and talk about the state of the welding industry as a whole, and also talk about a great conference coming up for welding instructors who are passionate about teaching, but need some additional resources. There's something in this episode for everyone. Before we get into the show, I want to take a moment to thank the sponsors who make it all happen. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I'm never going to ask the listeners for money. No, this is a free show. So no Patreons, no GoFundMes, none of that stuff. I want you guys to be able to listen to the show for free. So I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsors who support the show and help me keep this train rolling, and tell you a little bit about some of their products that I've actually used and fully recommend. Today's episode of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Rockmount Research and Alloys. They design rods and wires to weld stronger and last longer. They've been in the game for over 40 years now, and they've got maintenance welding on lockdown. Rockmount maintenance welding products are specifically designed to perform in the toughest, most unpredictable conditions. They can help you reduce re-welds and keep your equipment up and running, saving you time and giving you space to tackle the next challenge. We all know rework is a significant cost, but if you actually ran the numbers, rework costs approximately 300% more than getting the job done right the first time. There's an old adage that I'm a firm believer in. If you don't have time to do it right the first time, then when are you going to have time to do it over? Get the job done right the first time, every time with Rockmount. They have a rod and wire for every repair, whether it's cast, dissimilar metals, unidentifiable metals, dirty, greasy, or painted, doesn't matter. They got you covered. Check out their full line of products today at rockmountwelding.com and give them a follow on Instagram and tell them the Arc Junkie sent you. We're also brought to you by Fronius USA. And for the month of May, they're running a special deal for listeners of the Arc Junkies podcast. Right now, when you buy any TransTig 170 or 210, you'll get a free phaser welding helmet with your purchase when you go to shopweldingsupplies.com/ArcJunkies and use Arc Junkies in the discount box at checkout. That's a $290 value. These machines boast a 40% duty cycle at maximum output power, and the inverter technology will actually compensate for voltage fluctuations when your input voltage is too low. Anyone who's ever had to work on site knows the power is always hit or miss, and you're constantly tripping breakers that aren't always easy to access. Well, now the machines will regulate the incoming power for you, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. In addition, you can operate this thing up to 300 feet away with extension cords without having to worry about a loss of power. How cool is that? You can run both DC, stick, and TIG functions on these machines, and yes, it'll run 6010 as well. I see this machine being the perfect lightweight sidekick for on-site restaurant repairs, which, might I add, is a great side hustle and that can turn into a full-time gig pretty damn quick if you want it to. Weighing in at just 21.6 pounds, the TransTig is highly portable and ideal for mechanical contractors, maintenance welders, and those working in the food and beverage industry. It also comes with a rolling hard case to protect your machine on site and while traveling. Get your TransTig 170 or 210 today at shopweldingsupplies.com/ArcJunkies, and make sure to use Arc Junkies in the discount box at checkout and get that free Phaser 1000 welding helmet with your purchase. Oh, and by the way, they got free shipping. You have until May 31st to take advantage of this awesome deal. Arc Junkies is also brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Manscaped offers precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped is trusted by over 2 million men worldwide, myself included. They make the best grooming products I've ever used. Yeah, I'm not using the same trimmer on my beard that I used on my Giggleberries. That's just not sanitary. Right now, Manscaped has an offer for our listeners of the Arc Junkies podcast. Get 20% off plus free shipping when you use code word ArcJunkies at checkout at manscaped.com. I've been a long-time user of Manscaped products, and the only reason I upgraded my 2.0 is because they released the 3.0. The Lawnmower 3.0 trimmer features a cutting-edge ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology. I'm sure you all have nicked the boys out there a few times using the wrong tool for the job, and your downstairs probably look like a crime scene. Just stop it already. In addition, this trimmer comes with an LED light for more precise shave and is waterproof to make your shower shave clean and easy. The Lawnmower 3.0 comes inside the brand new Perfect Package 3.0 and comes with everything you need to keep trimmed, cut-free, and smelling nice. The Manscaped Perfect Package 3.0 also includes the Crop Preserver, which is my personal favorite. It's an anti-chafing ball deodorant and moisturizer. I'm sure with summer just around the corner, you guys are already dreading the old grip and rip while you're walking around the job site. Just apply some Crop Preserver and put an end to all that before it starts. Manscaped threw in 2 free gifts in the Perfect Package: a pair of high-performance Manscaped boxer briefs to keep your junk feeling fresh all day, and a travel shed bag to store all your grooming goodies. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code ARCJunkies at manscaped.com. Manscaped, your balls will thank you. We're also brought to you by Everlast Welders, my go-to power source for all my welding needs around the house or for my side hustle. Whether it's some intricate stainless steel parts that require TIG, a little hardwire MIG for art pieces, stands, or brackets, or just fixing some stuff for my neighbors or coworkers, my Everlast machines keep me up and running. If you're looking for a machine that does it all, check out the MTS 225 or the 275. I'm talking stick, MIG, flux core, TIG, and both AC for aluminum and DC TIG as well. And it's also compatible with the spool gun for when the aluminum work requires a little bit more deposition. This is a great choice for anyone looking to start their welding journey, side hustle, or small business. Why spend upwards of 10 grand to get the same functions from a welding machine when you can get it for a quarter of the price? Check out the full assortment of power sources, generators, plasma cutters, and accessories today at everlastwelders.com. They also offer financing for your small business with an instant decision. Swing by today and pick out the machine you need to tackle the work you want. And make sure to use Arc Junkies in the comment section when you buy any machine that comes with a stock foot pedal and get that free Nova foot pedal and TIG torch upgrade. It's a $100 value. All right, let's kick this week off right. Fire up your machine, drop your hood, and turn me up 5.
You're listening to the Arc Junkies podcast. Helping you make every weld better than your last with each episode. And now your host, Jason Becker.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Arc Junkies podcast. Today I have Kyle Linko, Jesse Srpan, and the one and only Mr. Ryan Eubank. How's everybody doing today?
Good. How you doing, man?
Doing well.
Doing great. Sweating my ass off here down in Florida while you guys are freezing yours off up in Ohio and PA.
That's for sure.
So, Ryan, what's new in the world of welding where you're at, man?
Oh, man. The energy for welding is unbelievable. I've never seen so much job opportunities for young men and women. There's a lot of neat things on the horizon for welding instructors all over the country. We are going to have a Welding Educator Workshop on June 14th through the 18th for any instructor that wants to come in and get educated, real educated. We're not going to be like some of these other educator workshops where you come in and they want you to buy a product. We want real educators in these educator workshops where we can talk about real problems and give them real solutions and teach them different methodologies on how to, become a better teacher, but not only that, become a more influenced instruction on your students that you're working with. I am working with an individual right now on a thing with Kyle Linko, and we're going to invite you, Jason. We're going to invite Jesse also involved with this, but we want to start something like the Welding Football League is what we're going to try to do. And there's an organization out of Kansas City that have been starting this particular welding competition out there. They've done it in Texas, and then I think it was in Kansas City. And it's something that we're going to try to pilot at the Welding Educator Workshop to teach educators how to be competitive educators, but also be able to take it back to their school and see if they can start being more influential in teaching students and other welding in schools in their area how to be more competitive. That's the one thing about welding. This is our sport, guys, and we've never really looked at it as a sport. And it's time that we start looking at it something different than just a career, but it's definitely a sport, because I think the men and women in the next couple of years, because of COVID, I think COVID has benefited us in one way. The skilled trade shortage is even more worse now, because some of the students that they are out there right now, COVID has completely crippled them through career technical education. And I think the next couple years it's going to be even such a much more demand, because the seeds that we needed to plant this year didn't get cultivated enough to be able to put them into the ground to be able to become good, skilled, welded craftsmen, fabricators, and stuff like that. So I think the next couple years if you're a good skilled worker, good skilled welder, good fabricator, got a good head on your shoulders, you're doing all the right things, I think it's going to be absolutely a banner couple years for you. And what will happen in those couple years, it's going to make a name for yourself. And then the rest of your life, you're going to be one of those phenoms that are going to be able to name your price, to be able to go out and work in different fields, from the military to Air Force. I mean, there's so many opportunities out there. I think that's one of the cool things for us as welding educators, is to get to see the young, talented men and women that are out there and what they're going to be able to do with this.
Yeah, I think COVID, definitely threw a wrench in things, especially, when we talk about the skills gap, because myself included, a lot of people had to train welders from home. And as you guys know, welding is not a spectator sport. It's a kinetic, you got to get your hands on it. You have to touch it. You have to feel it. You have to see it. You have to breathe it. You can't do that via Zoom. You can't do it via Microsoft Teams or any, WebEx. You can't do it that way. You can see it. You got a lot of people that are visual learners, but until they put that rod to the plate or connect that machine up or set their own machine or dial it in, pull that trigger, strike that arc, you're not getting that feedback. And so, they met the minimum hour requirements of the program, because everybody switched over and they started showing them YouTube videos and doing, class lectures and stuff via the internet, but nobody got the hands-on part. And now they're graduating and they're getting ready to enter the workforce, depending on which state they're in. If the restrictions are laxing enough for them to go out and get employment, and some of them are years behind in their welding program, but now they're going to graduate because they've met the minimum hour requirements. And, we got to get that new group of students in here. And it sucks. I feel like, people that were going to school, all the way elementary, all the way up to high school, they got robbed this year or this past year, because, especially in states with like the severe lockdowns where like you can't get out, you're not allowed to go out of your house, only for essential items. And then, only what's essential is, that's deemed, the government's going to tell you what's essential for you. But education was not essential enough for people to meet in class. And like here in Florida, we were fortunate. Like we shut down in March and we were back to school the first week of June, 2020. So we were back 100% in class, hands-on. We had to do the social distancing. I put students inside, but that gave me a great opportunity to take the rest of the students outside. So now I've got a maximum of 10 people in one room, so I put 9 of them inside the welding lab. The rest of you, let's go outside. We're going to weld outside. So I'd fire up the 305Gs out there, and, we did fabrication projects and stuff out there, but not a lot of people had access or the ability to do that, and that's what sucks.
Jay, and I think that's something that's so amazing about you and Kyle Linko and all the educators that I've been working with, is to see how creative they're getting. Because so many people took the COVID as, I hate to say it, but as a vacation. I really, truly, honestly do. They didn't really care about the well-being of what their product was. And for those people, that was like one of the things that was devastating to me, is because I didn't know what to do with myself. And so what we did as a welding educator is my program and my school, we got to do some things. We got to build a welding school. We got to see the whole throughput, but there was a lot of virtual reality education going on. And for once, it really gave me time to start thinking about how can I become a better educator? How can I do it quicker, faster, and better? Because the kids that didn't get it, I don't have a whole lot of time. I don't have a year and a half to work with these kids now. Now it was like I had 4 months. So I had to learn how to do something so much faster and so much quicker. And that's why it's been so good. Like me and Kyle, it's been amazing. I went out to their school and they came out to our school, and the cross collaboration that we did. And I think that's what we want to ingest into this Welding Educator Workshop that we're having on the 14th through the 18th. It's just something I'm really excited about. And that's what I want. I want it to be an open platform where other educators are talking to other educators, because I think when we had them at Lincoln Electric, that was one of the greatest things about those educator workshops. We actually had open discussions, and other instructors actually figured out they have the same problem that I do, and what are the best methodologies on how to correct that, how to make it a little bit easier or a little more self-sustaining for you as an educator. And that's what I wanted to bring back to these educator workshops, because, you know, I always needed my batteries recharged. And those educator workshops, having guys come in and stuff like that, it was absolutely amazing. You know, my phone just rang, and it was Charlie Cross. How crazy was that?
Here's you talking about him.
Or what?
Yeah.
That is
His
so
ears are burning.
No, and Ryan, you're right about the educator workshops and with COVID. So in Pennsylvania here is, so something I was doing, I'm just going to talk about real quick, was when I was going for my master's in educational leadership, was I was trying to develop personal learning networks with the welding instructors in PA. So it finally came across that, you know, there's like 80 some CTCs in Pennsylvania. So I emailed, I don't know, about 90 welding instructors, and only a handful of them got back to me. And regardless, though, as I was going through this year, especially with COVID, that I noticed that a lot of our CTCs were still virtual and 100% virtual. And I was in these meetings, and I'm like, how y'all teaching them welding and all that? And they were, you know, as Ryan and everybody says, YouTube videos, this and that. So I went a different way. I didn't teach them welding. I taught them 21st century skills. So we learned how to, you know, use Google Documents. We did the whole G Suites. We learned how to build PowerPoints, make PowerPoints, slides. We learned how to write a resume, what you know, what that looks like, how to write cover letters, stuff like that. So when they do go out into the real world, the workforce, that they're already a leg ahead. And we did talk about welding. We did learn some welding in that, and we were hybrid for a while. I have you know 12 students on my A day and another 12 on my B day. Now we just went back to have all my kids 4 days a week, which is good. And as Ryan said, the thing is you know, how do we bridge that skills gap? So my biggest thing wasn't my seniors. I don't want to say I wasn't worried about them. My juniors are the ones that got crushed the most. And I always tell them, here in our program, I get my kids for 3 years. They come in at 10th grade, 11th, and 12th. The most important year is their junior year in my eyes. Just like you play sports. I played football. My most important year was my junior year, because you get all your tapes, you send them out. So the first year is you learn what my style is like, what welding's about. And then your junior year, you hit it hard. And your senior year, you hone in on those skills. Like, do you want to learn how to use the robot, the sub arc? Do you want to learn downhill welding? Do you want to learn uphill pipe welding, etc.? You know, so they could branch out that way. And that's how my program's built. So when I met with Ryan a couple times this year, our thing is how to expedite this. How are we going to make up this lost time? You know, and that's what these educator workshops are going to show. And I've been to a lot of workshops and seminars all across the country. And the biggest thing that I've gotten, the best takeaways is, as Ryan said, is the open platform or the open forum where just the men and women just start talking. There's no sales pitch. There's no buy this. There's no buy that. This is what works in my class. Why don't you give this a spin? You know, it's not like, here, use this curriculum or this and that. And that's the big thing, I think, with the workshops that we're putting together, that we put together in June, is you're not going to have that. You're not going to feel pressure to buy anything. You're just going to get the raw, this is what it's like. This is what we've been doing. This is what we went through. So we all went through the same. And the number one question that I've been receiving is, how you been doing what you've been doing? You know, how do you do this? How do you do that? And Ryan fields them too. You know, and just for example, we were just down in Kentucky with Ryan's students and mine, and they all place very well. You know, Ryan's student one third, one of mine plays fifth. And it's like, we didn't stop. You know, we never stop. And even though we were on lockdown and we couldn't do this and that, a good educator was going to go out and find the ways to pick up that time with their students. And that's why, you know, Ryan and I, we click a lot, because we have the same personality and mentality when it comes to educating, or I say changing lives. That's the big thing. Yeah. Like, when you come to this workshop, and I did, we put in there, is, you know, the biggest thing is changing lives. When, if I could just speak for a quick second, when I first met Ryan, 7-8 years ago, Ryan? So we were at Lincoln, and I met him in that, and everybody was focusing on, you know, the theory part of this, and they wanted to get this and this away. My biggest takeaway was, and what I wanted the most from when I went out to the educator workshop, was the bond that he had with his students. I spent more time with his students out there than I did with Ryan and anybody else, because you could be the greatest educator, and you could say it, you're going to give them this and this and this and do it this way and this way, but if you don't have that connection with those kids, they're not going to care. And so I spend more time talking with them, welding with them, to get to know, like, what did it take for you to be here? What kind of educator inspired you to give up your summer and be here? And it took me about 2 years, and I got to that level. And that was the greatest takeaway that I've taken away from any workshop ever, was just to see that the passion that his kids have for him and he has for his kids. The educators, they should know their theory. And you're going to come and learn some tips and tricks in that. But the big takeaway is to form that connection and bond. Just like he brought his kids out on a Saturday, I bring mine out on a Saturday. They'll weld 24/7 if we ask them to, won't they, Ryan? They don't stop. I have my kids do a lot of different stuff on the weekends. We do a lot of different things on the weekends. And to me, that was when I felt that I was at the level of where I wanted to be in education with the kids. And I'm sure, Jason, you can relate with your students as well. It's about that connection. Like, if you don't have that connection, I don't care what you have here, you're never going to disseminate it to those kids because they don't really care. And that's the biggest thing we're going to show you with this workshop, and how to bring that back into your classroom. Like you hear like a lot of educators talk about, like, I get along with my kids, my kids will do this, I'm going to do this and that. But, to me, a lot of them are talking fluff. They don't have that. And Ryan was probably the first educator I saw that had the same passion and desire that I saw within myself. And he brought that out, 1,000 times. And as I said, I always tease him that we're cut from a different cloth. We're like the movie Twins, right, Ryan? I'm Danny DeVito. You're Arnold Schwarzenegger. And for the people that don't know, there's a little sarcasm in there, but that's what it is. And we've been working on these workshops for a while, right, Ryan? We've been trying to get this to go. Absolutely. And there goes my light. But this is the year that we got it to go, and I'm very excited. He's very excited, and I think the people that are going to come there are going to walk away being like, wow, this is really what an educator workshop should be.
And I think that's the biggest thing, because like other workshops and stuff that I've attended, it's the same thing. It's like they're trying to sell you a curriculum.
Right.
But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what curriculum you're using, because welding is welding is welding is welding. Yeah. Doesn't matter who the author is, who the publication company is, how fancy the textbook, whether it's online, in print, whatever. At the end of the day, it comes down to the educator. You have to be willing to put forth the effort, the time, the one-on-one with your students. So it all depends. The person has to have that drive and that want to do their job, to be passionate about being a welding instructor.
Right.
And that's one of the things I always felt beneficial about the educator workshops. And like Ryan was saying, that was the time that I would go up and recharge my batteries every year. That was like my thing, because a year of teaching will take a lot out of you. Oh. Because a lot of kids you can't reach because they don't want to be reached.
Right.
They're just there passing time, whatever the case. And, going up there, talking with other instructors that are truly passionate about teaching and are passionate about welding, that's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. It doesn't matter what's up on the PowerPoint presentation, what you're doing in the lab. It was always, I think I learned more, like the workshops was just an avenue for me to interact with other instructors. I think I learned more eating breakfast or lunch or dinner or going out for the evening with the instructors than I did in the workshop. Just seeing, hey, how do you deal with this? What are some of the things that you've tried to overcome these obstacles? And I think that was the more of the beneficial part.
And you're right.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. You go ahead.
No, you're good. What I always noticed, like Ryan, when you and I went to Oregon last year, was how much of the basics we forget. And that's we kind of just start forgetting the simple things. And it made me think of that, Jason, when you go to dinner and you're like, hey man, how do I deal with this scenario or this situation or this weld? And it goes away from how advanced we are as welders to the more the simple things, the things of, hey, how do we carry on with a student who's got this issue and how do we make that work and solve,
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was going to say. Sorry, Ryan, that, your guard is let down a little bit. Like when you're in these seminars, like when I go to Lincoln, like they're nice, but to me it's structured and rigid. So when we can like they have an agenda they got to get through, and like it's like if they don't get through that, like they see that as a failure. But I see it as if you just let us openly talk and collaborate a little bit, you're going to get more out of it. Just like with the conversation flowing, just let it be, and that happens over breakfast, dinner, lunch, or a snack, or when someone's taking a break in that, and then it's natural because that's the stuff you can't put on the PowerPoint or on the whiteboard in that. And as Jesse was saying, and with Ryan, when you just talk about that, it's just like, yeah, I didn't even think about that. It's, we get caught up in the world is, what's the next big thing or the greatest big thing, the next advancement coming down. And we forget about some of the fundamentals that really brought us all here.
Jess, one of the cool things when we went out to Oregon and we taught that educator workshop out there was the Thursday when we brought the kids in, Jay. When I went out there at first, they're like, no, we don't want the students to be involved with it because they don't want to feel like, that the instructors didn't feel comfortable being in the same class and they being students. Well, then after we get there, the instructors are like, hey, can we bring some of our students up here? And it was amazing to see Jesse interacting with those students and my students interacting with other teachers and me working it was so potpourri. But the education that happened in there was so unbelievably magical, it wasn't even funny. And I think that is the thing that we get messed up on as educators. We want to teach them how to do the flips and tricks and how to jump a motorcycle, but they don't even have the fundamentals on how to pedal a bike without training wheels yet. And I think that's the cool thing about what we do with these educator workshops. There is such a potpourri of opportunity for learning for every facet of educator, for the first-year educator to the 30-year educator. James Craner from Houston, Texas told me, he says, well, Ryan, what makes you such a great educator? I said, people just like you, James. I said, I, as an educator, am not just teaching you a curriculum I want you to have so you can buy. I want to learn what is your secret. And he told me 12-gauge shotgun. And I said, what's that? He goes, that's just like stick welding. It's got something in it for everybody. And you can do so many things with that particular type of an electrode and that type of welding process. I said, James, I'm going to use that for the rest of my life. It's us as educators opening up the potpourri and being able to learn about the different flavors and the different teaching strategies and just watching people work with each other. And I learned something when I went to my college class to get my educating license, and it was beg, borrow, and steal. And how did I become the best educator, and how did I feel like I felt like a great educator? I begged, borrowed, and stealed from everybody. It's crazy. I remember when Jesse was 15 years old, and he walked in and gave me a business card. That changed my life forever. I learned so much from him, and I still learn from him every day. And, the thing I can tell you, educators, if you're listening, you're going to have moments in life in educating when you doubt everything you do. And there's things that's going to happen to you in life that you're worried about what your future might bring. But always remember, if you always do the right thing and you're always thinking about the best well-being of that student, I tell teachers and educators, don't teach welding, teach life. And if you teach life and you teach good practices in life, and welding is why they're there, they're going to be the best damn welder they ever possibly could be. But what so many educators want to do is they want to throw welding down their throat, but they don't want to teach them how to live a good lifestyle. And if they show up, shut up, and do a great job every day, it doesn't matter what you're doing, you're going to be great at that. If you show up every day to be a brother, you're going to be the best brother. If you just shut up and you do your job and you just do the right thing every day, you're going to be the best brother, best son, best daughter. And that's what I want my students to understand. Welding is while we're here. But reality of it is, if we learn life, you can't do nothing but master welding. And I think that's one of the coolest things that I've gotten to learn from not just Jesse, but Jay, from you and Kyle, and that's the coolest thing I've learned is being able to steal from all of you guys because you teach me so much. Like what we're doing right now, Jay, I can tell you my Duracell batteries were completely done. They were drained. I put them in the recharger and they wouldn't recharge. But this right now, I don't know what it did, but it has energized my batteries, and it's given me a fuel to want to go back and start, get back on that education train and make sure that we're doing the right things. Do you know what I'm saying?
100%.
And Ryan, you're right. And that's, so my program is just like, I can say everybody else is here. Like we have a waiting list to get in our program. And we learn so much more than welding. Welding is a small snippet of really what we learn. If you come in with the mentality in my program is all you're going to learn how to weld, or all you learn is how to weld, you're not going to make it in my program. You learn how to become a productive citizen of society. I'd be naive to say every student in my program is going to go out and weld. They're not, and I'm fine with that. I have students that went on to become teachers, nurses, entrepreneurs, business owners, social media marketing. They develop their companies that way. So we show them the skills how to do that. And then welding goes along with that. So we always say you don't want to be a one-trick pony. Growing up, my father, he's a nuclear welder, master plumber, and a pipe fitter. So I learned how to do pipe fitting, plumbing, and HVAC and welding. Honestly, I've only been really welding for really only about 12 or so years, but I've been around it my whole life. And, it's just something that I was fortunate that I was very, very good at doing at an early age. But now, my welding has kind of went downhill a little bit because I'm not a welder anymore. I'm an educator or a life changer. And I tell my students that. And, there's some days that I go in the booth and they all weld me. And I say, you should, because my job is not a welder per se anymore. It's to show you how you young men and women how to become the elite welders you can be, or elite grinders or floor sweepers or that, and as Ryan says, we call it SSD here, shut up and do, show up, shut up and do. If you want to become the best floor sweeper, do it, just be the best you can. But what he was saying about the educators and that, it's all about, the beg, borrow, and steal. It's all about your network. If you're the smartest person in the room, you need to find a new room. If I'm the best educator in the room, I need to find a different room. You're gonna gravitate and you're gonna become the people you hang out with. And everybody asks me, a lot of people think I'm a really good educator, and I say I'm okay. And how I become, people ask me, how come your kids are so good, or how come they're so this? Well, it's about who I hang out with. I want to hang out with the best of the best. I hang out with Ryan. I hang out with a lot of people from Instagram. We talk to them and that, like Jason, how you're doing that crew thing. I want to be a part of that. So my aspiration is to be not just to get in the front of the welders. I look at it as I don't want to be selfish anymore. I have aspirations of becoming a director. That's why I pursued that certification in that. I think I have a broader range. I want to reach out more to just the welders. I want to reach out to all the men and women in the skilled trades. And that's really, what this is about as well. Yeah, we're talking about welding. Our educator workshops right now are for welding and that, but they don't have to be. And that's the great thing about it, right? It can be for anybody in the skilled trades. Just come with an open mind and just watch what you can learn and what you can do, because that's the thing. If you could learn to get that connection, you can bring that into any classroom. That's the big thing. And that's what I said I learned from his kids. The first year I was out at Lincoln Electric, I spent 90% of my time in the lab welding with them because they had the fortitude to challenge me in welding competitions. And I could hold my own. And I like that. I like the confidence they had. I like that, that they were talking to me about that. They were very good. And that's something that I wanted to see in my kids. And I instilled that in my kids, and I brought that back. And that's what we want to show these other educators that, as I said, it doesn't have to be in welding. It could be in any shop, plumbing, masonry, HVAC, whatever you want. That's the thing. And I'm sure you do the same thing, Jason, with your kids. You show them that there's more to life than welding, but, this is what you can do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like in the classes that I teach, welding is a byproduct.
Right.
We're learning life skills because, I get students in my class and I teach post-secondary. So these are students that are college age, not high schoolers, but, I'm teaching them life skills. Like, here's how to balance a checkbook. Here's how to set up a checking account, things that somehow they were lost along the way because, I don't know what they did as far as whether it was, parenting or, whatever the case may be, product of their environment. They don't have these skills. I showed one of my students how to change a tire. I was getting ready to leave for work one day, and he's like, "Hey, man, do you have one of those things to and he's like stumbling around, and I'm like, "Okay, hold on. Let's back up here. What's the problem?" He's like, "I got a flat tire." And I was like, "Oh, okay. You need a lug wrench." He's like, "Yeah, but I need the other thing." And I was like, "A jack?" "Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, I got that." And I was like, so I get all the tools for him, and I was like, "You ever change a tire?" "No." I said, "Oh, okay, here." And I just walked him through it. But I mean, it's just simple life skills. And this young man was, 20, 22, never changed a tire in his life. I mean, he's been driving since he was 16.
Yeah.
There's a lot of life skills that you don't learn. That and like how to shake somebody's hands.
Jason,
how to introduce yourself.
The one biggest thing Ryan and I talk about all the time is we didn't sign up to know we were going to be a psychologist, a therapist, and do have a sociology degree.
Financial advisor.
The many hats you have to wear in education.
And like when I started with Ryan when I was 23, and I was naive. I'm like, I just got to weld good. I got to impress people and show some of my fab skills. And within a year and later, Ryan's like, "Are you done being a therapist?" And it's like, that's kind of where it makes that breeding, whether you're a good instructor or mediocre, is because you kind of fall into helping the people. And that tire changing thing may spark that one person, Jason, that like, all of a sudden they're like, "Man, I want to go get a job and I want to be here early and I want to do that." And you just never know, that one moment they learn something feeling dumb or they learn something new, that just ignites a whole prairie fire.
Yeah.
Hey, Jay, I had 2 years ago, I went to an Indians game and I was sitting out in the bleachers and I met this guy, and I'm there with my daughters, my son, my whole family. And there's a guy sitting behind me, and, he just got out of recovery. He was in rehab, and, it was like a fresh start for him. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, you want some nachos?" And I mean, I just met the guy for like literally 30 seconds. I said hi to him. I said, "Hey, I'm going to get some nachos. You want some nachos?" He's like, "Oh, want some nachos? What? I said, "Yeah, I'm going to go buy some nachos. I'll buy you some nachos." He's like, "Okay." And so we're sitting there, and I said, "So what are you going to do now?" He goes, I really don't know." I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" He says, "I would really like to be a therapist and try to help other recovering addicts once they get out. I would love to do what I went to a treatment center to do." He says, "But I'd like to do it on a grander scale." And he says, "I really like music, and music really inspired me." I said, "Well, I'm a teacher at Lakeland Community College." I said, "You should come up here and, I'll see what I can do to help you get into the program." I just got an email 2 days ago from the psychology teacher here. And he graduated top in his class. He's president of one of these programs here. And he wrote an essay about me and how I changed his life just because I bought him something at an Indians game. And so there you go again. It had nothing to do with welding. And Linko, you said it the best. We aren't teachers. We're life changers. I doubted myself my whole life because I'm dyslexic. And if I don't here it goes again, Linko, you surround yourself around amazing people. I had a boss one time, his name was Rich Bazinski. He called me in his office. He says, "Hey, Ryan, do me a favor. Could you please stop sending emails?" I said, "Rich, hell yeah, I could do that. I hate writing emails." I said, "But why?" He says, "Because I'm so sick of people judging you because you don't know where to put the right where the right where is, the right there where the right there is, the right to where the right to is, the punctuations, abbreviations, all that." He goes, "Ryan, I'm so sick of people judging you based upon spelling and punctuation and not about the product you're doing. So, I want to help you. So any email you need, please let me do it for you." And he was like my blanket, kind of like my wife. My wife is my blanket. Kind of like my secretary, kind of like a Tom Rosium, kind of like I can tell you one of my new blankets that I absolutely am infatuated, and that's Kyle Linko. Because none of this stuff and none of these educator workshops would be ever possible You know, I got so lucky because of the educator workshops that I used to do for Lincoln, and other educators like Ryan, we want you to come here. Ryan, we want you to come there. And that's the greatest thing. I was like, Jess, I need you to come with me to go out to Oregon so we can take our students out. That was one of the greatest trips I was ever on. And it was with my best friends. It was with my students. It was with Jesse. And now to see where we can take this next level of education, and we could do this as a team and do this as a group. Because, guys, this is what we need more than anything. We need to not call ourselves welding educators. We need to call ourselves welding life changers, because it is so unbelievable how just a line of communication could affect somebody's life. You know, so many people don't know about the guy next to him because nobody can eavesdrop anymore because everybody's texting on a stupid damn phone. You know, there's so many times that there's a conversation that you would love to be a part of, but you don't even know it's a conversation because they're texting it. That's why I give my lessons to my students. The number one lesson I always give my kids, they have to do it 3 times a month, and it's called a Chipotle talk. Don't just stand in line. Introduce yourself to the guy next to you. Every one of my kids do that, and they come in with business cards, job opportunities. They come in with all these things. It's like, Eubank, I cannot believe that this is what happens. And that's what they don't understand. So when we talk about life changing, it is the line of communication. And I think that's what Jesse, for example, it is so inspirational to listen to him talk to the youth about what great things he does, and to listen to him, you know, embrace his ability not only to weld, but to articulate to the youth of today. They look at him like a god.
What was scary, Ryan, is now I'm turning 31 on Saturday, and so the youth is going away.
31.
A little bit. But, you know, Ryan, like when we did TV, I mean, remember that was, 23, 24 years old, and everyone, there's no way you can build a bike. You've never done it that way. You've never done it from the ground up. And, you know, what's weird is not everyone flew a plane before the Wright brothers until they finally did it. And et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and how, Nikolai Tesla worked and all that stuff. I mean, if you know the history on all that, it's like, so what is this thing with a youth or being too old? Like, how many people do we have at Lakeland that come in there and they're 65, 70 years old, and they can start now if they want, or if they want to be 17, getting ready to make 6 figures a year on a tank job, they're going to do that. And that's what we instill in them,
That's society right there, is the whole age thing in that. And then Ryan, we had this conversation at lunch, remember? So what I see is, and this is no disrespect, is, a lot of educators in the past have been very, very old. And, you get an education and you hang on to your 60, 65, 70. And, what we're trying to do with these educator workshops in this Welding League series is, we want to reach a broader audience. And unfortunately, the older generation isn't in social media savvy as everybody here. And I was telling the gentleman that we were talking to is, I go, you need to make sure that your marketing is up, because now everything's on TikTok, Instagram, I go Facebook, I go is for the parents of everything, the 40 and over crowd. And, all my kids laughing at it. I go, it's the truth. I go, Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat is kind of where you want to get, your base from in that. I'm sure, Jason, you could attest to that as well, and the same thing with you, Jesse. And that's the thing is, we put an age number on it. It's like, oh, all right. But, it's not that, though. I mean, you can learn welding, you could do this, or you could be 18 and make $200,000 if you have the skill set. And I tell my students, I go, people are going to prey on you being young and naive and pay you less than what your actually worth is. Once you know your worth, that's a scary thing. And I go, don't let anybody ever dictate your worth. So I got into an argument at an OAC meeting about, how some of these young kids going out are demanding, $25, $30 an hour, while the guy that spent 30 years in the shop doesn't make that. And I said, well, just because someone spent 30 years doing something doesn't mean it was right. And, they didn't like that. And I go, my kids know their worth. My kids know if they can weld a pipe in a 6G doing TIG welding, they should be getting paid more than $9 an hour, Yeah. So I was down in a shipyard in Philly, and they said, we can't get welders here. And I go, all right. I go, what are you paying them? First I go, what's the test? It was a 6G, schedule 10 stainless, and a schedule 40 or 60 stick all the way out. And I go, you're paying him $26 in Philly? I go, get out of here. I go, this should be about $46 or $56. I go, you raised the rate, and I go, I can have a slew of men and women down here, but they don't want to do that. And it's coming to what we talked about before we started the show, is the cost of material and prices in that. Those prices aren't going down. And our wages need to come up too, because we're never going to be able to afford to do anything. Once these people see their worth, the skilled trades it's coming almost full circle again. We're coming back to the top.
Link, you're so right. Linko, that's the one thing right now. I had a buddy, Brad Berg, a while ago. I didn't see him for about 15 years. And he asked me, hey, Ryan, how many kids do you have and all that? And I said, I have 53. They're like, 53? I said, yeah, I have 50 high school students, and I have 3 of my own, but they are my kids. And here's the problem with educators. So many educators just see it as a job. And I see it as a life changer. And what I don't want to see happen is business and industry take advantage of my student. At $13 an hour, you can go to Target and pack shelves for $15 an hour, and you want them to do what? And there's nobody speaking out for the beliefs of you, because every educator up here, they're like, oh, Ryan Eubank this, Ryan Eubank that, because I care so much about my students, because I am so sick and tired of parents say you don't want to be a welder because they don't make any money, because they're so right. They don't. That's why you're not a welder. You are a skilled craftsman or craft woman. You are a fitter, fabricator, specialized welder, ironworker, boilermaker, pipe fitter, sheet metal worker, shipbuilder. You are a skilled trade individual. And that's what these companies, they're starting to come around now up here in Northeast Ohio, because now they are understanding, hey, Ryan's right. But guess what? Ryan never gets any credit, because the simple fact is, I'm the one fighting the fight for the students. I actually went into companies and say, you can't have my best students. Well, why can't we have your best students? They're not $15 to $12 an hour kids. These are $20 to $25 an hour kids. And if you're not going to pay that, they're not going to come employed here. Well, good luck finding that. And then they get into all these meetings and gatherings. You're like, where are you getting all these great people at? Going up and seeing Ryan. Well, how did you get them from Ryan? Ryan said we had to pay them. We started paying them, and now we've got the best cream of the crop, youngest, talented, most aggressive kids you could ever possibly imagine. And we've got jobs aplenty.
Yeah.
And now everybody wants to know, what's Ryan doing? That is what I'm doing. I am building a product that is worth more than $12 an hour. And everybody says, well, we start all of our new employees out at $12 an hour. And I said, yeah, and you know what? When they start out at $12 an hour and you tell them you're going to give them a raise, guess what you ain't doing? It'll be 4 and 5 months down the road. I'm still at $12 an hour, Ryan, still at $12 an hour. I'm like, well, you know what? Here's a job that's paying $30 an hour. And then the company
the biggest thing, Ryan, we got to teach people is when to know when to fold. If they see a monster.com or an ad for help wanted, and they go in there and just put the resume in and take the $15 an hour job. It's actually going in there, bringing a bucket of tools and telling people they know what they know and going after that. That's the big part. And that's a few percent that we've had as welders. They didn't even ask us for jobs. They went out and kept headhunting. They headhunt for themselves. They leave the job when they know it's getting dry for something better, and they're not afraid to do that. And that's really important to instill that in our students up and coming, and even past students who ask us, because there's I'm bored, 3 years, same place. Then move on, go somewhere else, or take a leap of faith. You need to do that.
Yeah, you're right, and that's something that we teach here. And I tell my students that, if you're not happy where you're at, you should bounce, especially if you have the skill set in that. And I have people that come out to me and they want my kids and that, just like as Ryan said, they want the best of the best. And no, they're not. A lot of my top talented students that left here, the running joke is they all go into the carpenters union, and they're all making 6 figures. They travel a lot in that, and that's the thing. If you want to stay local around here, around our area, it's like $15-$20. If you want to travel, you're going to make $60, $70, $80 an hour, upwards up to $100. And I tell my students, if you want to make the money, then go out on your own. get a nice job, and so be it. One of my students right now, he just got hooked up with a really good government job. It's a career. He's set for life. They started him off at $22 an hour. He's going to graduate in 3 weeks. So that's not bad for our area. And he's got room to grow. And that was the thing that he liked the most. He's like, I got room for growth, and they're going to train me to grow. And that's really what you want, because in my program, we have a saying, it's, my vision is beyond the hood. So you don't want to be behind the hood your whole life. I know Ryan says choke and smoke, and that's what it is. Like my goal was when I became a welder was to become the best welder I can be, but I want to use my brain more than anything. And I get paid more inspecting than I ever did welding. And I make I make a lot of money inspecting, and I tell the kids that, and I have kids that pursue that. And, so I go, it's amazing, the opportunities we give them in that. And that's the thing, they have to know their worth, but they don't know their worth because no one showed them their worth. It's just getting back to your story, Jason, about the tire changing and that. And I taught at the post-secondary level for 6 years. And this year, and actually a year and a half, was the first time that I haven't taught. And some of the things they don't know is stuff like that, but they don't know the worth of a dollar. They don't know how much. A lot of people think $20,000 or $30,000 a year is a lot. Some people think, $50,000 a year is a lot. Well, I guess it depends on what you want. But if you want a $100,000 truck and a $300,000 home, $50,000 a year ain't going to cut it.
Yeah, it's not going to work.
Right. And that's what we have to show them. And that's why I say I'm more of a life changer. And as Jesse and Ryan said, is the many hats we have to wear. We're the father, the mother, we're the caretaker. And it's my kids. I see them more than their parents do and their guardians. I spend 3 hours a day with these kids, and they're my kids. Just like as Ryan said, is when someone asks me how many kids I have, I go, it depends on the year. So this year I have 50 plus my own daughter. So I go, I have 51, but one's biologically mine. And they all look at me like, if I had the wallet, they would all flip down, all their kids. And that's how I treat them. And the thing is my students are my students for life. And they know
absolutely.
that. And
absolutely.
And that's the greatest thing, is because they come back into the program and they're always texting you and calling you and that. And it's like the circle of life. It's like, like the Lion King, the song will play and that, and here we are. And
yep.
Right. And that's what it's like, and that's why we do it. And that's why I do it. And I always say when I'm leaving my house, I'm going to go change the world one student at a time. And people laugh at that, but it's true. Go ahead, Ryan.
I left Lincoln Electric. I had the greatest job in the world. I got to do everything. I mean, it was awesome. I worked with NASCAR, monster trucks, the NHRA, EAA. I've done a lot of cool things. And the craziest thing in life was leaving Lincoln. And Carl Peters asked me, Ryan, why do you want to leave? I said, I want to change the world. I want to change the game in society. I want to do something better than what I'm doing right now. Even though I love what I do, I want to change the world. And it was the craziest thing, because I feel like, guys, we are at that tipping point that we are changing the world right now.
Oh, we are.
I think it is the
all
most
of us in this
dynamic thing. To see somebody like Jesse Srpan, and you talk about the circle of life, and you talk about that relationship and that bond. I will never forget the day that kid walked in there. I have a company now. It's called Best American Metal Fabricators.
What's the acronym to that? Oh, BAM.
BAM.
Bam, bam.
Yeah. And anyways, the coolest thing is, it's graduates of mine that have come in together, and they started their company, and they're it was last Friday was our first full year that we were in the shop. I cannot feel any more prouder of that, and I only see it getting better and better and better and better and better and better. And the reality of it is, it's all just because of the connections. Now the employers that hire my employees, now my guys are foremans and supervisors and lead men, and they're shear operators, and they have all these awesome educational platforms that they're learning at their businesses. And now when they have overflow of work, they'll send work my way, or if they need something they can't do, they'll send it our way. So that's how I base my whole product at the company, is just the networking of students and the successes of the students and the successes of the employers. You know, a lot of these employers around here that are hiring my welders, 80% of their employees are my students. And they never have the problems that all these other places are having, and they just don't understand. And I think that's the one thing, getting back to education. It isn't about teaching welding, it's about teaching life. And once you teach them how to do the right things every day and how to show up, shut up, and do their job. You know, Kyle, it was like the other day when we were out at your shop. It was Saturday morning. I can tell you every other kid in their whole entire district had other things to do than come up and weld with a bunch of guys at a high school welding program. And they were there all day until the kids came and shook my hand, gave me a hug, and said, hey, I got to go to work.
Yeah.
Wasn't, hey, I'm going to my girlfriend's house. I'm going out with my boys. I'm going to a party. It was, I got to go to work. How cool is that as a testimony of who you are as an individual? You know, that is what is education in a whole right there.
It is. And that's a, you know, what we're trying to show in these educator workshops. It's that we're not all talk. You know, the kids are our products. I always call my kids my products. You know, if I'm putting out a bad product, that means I'm doing something wrong. You know, and you're right. And, you know, there we are on Saturday morning after we just put in a 16-hour shift the night before to practice. That's the testimony to the kids into our programs that we're doing. You know, Ryan goes on these walks every Friday with his kids, you know, 5:30 in the morning and that. You know, and here's the thing. So when I went out and saw Ryan, you know, over Easter break, he sends me a text message. He's like, you want to go to a Broadway musical? Right, I love Broadway musicals. I sent him back. I'm going. And I do. I love them in that, you know. And he goes, my students in it. Awesome. They're the things that we do and he does. You know, here it is Thursday. We all could be doing something different, right, Ryan? We all have something else to do. But you know what? We're there for our students. And here's the thing, because they'll be there for us. And the number one thing that COVID taught me this year was I needed my students as much as they needed me. You know, and that's a true thing. Like every year, my seniors have a personality, and this one was perseverance and resilience. And you know, and I didn't tell them that, you know, like that, but I do. I needed them more than anybody, I think, you know, at this time, because it sucked. It was hard. It was tough. I thought to myself at times, what am I doing? Am I doing it right? What should I be doing? And then all of a sudden, I had like an aha moment, and it was like, you know what? Let me just be there for them. And because I want them to be there for me. And that's what we did. And we got away from a lot of the straight welding. You know, like our days were just like we're talking now. Like, what are you doing today? How are you doing today? You know, like, you know, and that's what these kids needed. You know, they didn't need to hear all about theory and this and that. They wanted someone that cared for them, to know that we did care for them and that we were there, you know, and that we're going to be there for them through the thick or the thin. You know, we'll teach them the welding and that will come. You know, we can make that up. You know, if we run a summer school here, hey, you know, they could come back. And that's something that we're talking about, is maybe we do run a summer school for these kids that missed all this time, you know, to get them in there and that. But then, as I said, the number one thing for me was, you know, for my kids, that I really needed them. And it is. And it's about changing lives. And, you know, you change that tire for that kid, you change his life. Maybe one day down the road, he's going to show somebody else what you just taught him that. And that's the things. It's those little things. And that's why I think our programs are so successful, is because we don't just show them welding. We show them how to get to where they want to be. And that vehicle is welding, but it's also the vehicle of we inspire in that. Like my thing is I know that, you know, my passion isn't 100% into welding, and my kids' passion isn't. Just like when I was in school, I struggled in school. I hated English. I hated it with a passion. Like my teacher needed to know that I wasn't going to go on to college to become an English professor or teacher. That, you know, yeah, we got to learn Shakespeare and that, but it didn't thrill me like science and some math did. So, you know, that's what teachers need to know. These educators need to know that some of these kids don't share the same passion that you do into that subject. They're there for you to show them or inspire them. You know, to me, that's what a real good educator does, is inspire. You know, and
sorry, Jason. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
So, Kyle,
No, go ahead.
you said something about like not really being academically or, things like that. And what I tell my students in talks, not so much students, but when I talk to like 7th graders or 10th graders looking to get into trades or college, I actually freak the school out when I come in there and I'll say, how many of you hate doing school, hate being here, hate this rigmarole stuff? And man, they just cringe. You see them staring at me. And I'm just being real, because we were all those students in school. We were all throwing paper airplanes or sitting there just, daydreaming. And as soon as you do that, you've connected to them and relate to them and go, hey, I understand you hate it here. Maybe you're not that 4.0 student, but we might have an opportunity for a trade or something that will take that, if you're artistic, but you don't like being at school and you're not very good with bookwork, come over here. And then before you know it, 5 years later, you're getting your bachelor's degree or master's degree, and you have no idea how you got sucked into doing this because you hated school, but it's everything towards your job, your income, your trade. And that's how I tell everybody it's the big lie. That's kind of how I fell into it. I was about a 2.5 to 3.0 student. It took me a lot to learn, even when Ryan and I went back for college classes and stuff. And I did it reverse, but it was cool because I learned all the hands-on skills. And then I went back and I got sucked in because I wanted to know, how do you build staircases and how do you use Pythagorean theorem and all of this and, cosine tangent. I didn't know what I was doing in a book, but once you showed me how to make it, I'm like, I got it. And it's just that reverse education. And I love that. And I share that with everybody,
All right, we're going to go ahead and take a quick commercial break. This segment of the Arc Junkies podcast is brought to you by Strong Hand Tools. They make better tools at a better price. Take charge of your metalworking production time, reduce setup and project time, and increase productivity in metalworking today with Stronghand. You can check them out today at stronghandtools.com/ArcJunkies. We're also brought to you by AHP Welders, which is ideal for students, makers, and hobbyists. Want to get into welding but don't want to break the bank or sacrifice performance? Head on over to ahpwelds.com and pick up a machine for under $1,000. I've recently used their 201 XD and was pleasantly surprised how well it performed. This would be a great machine for anybody wanting to do AC or DC TIG in the garage or small shop. Let's get back into the show. I've had to do a bunch of COVID talks or whatever. A lot of educators have reached out to me and said, hey, can you talk to my class? They watch the videos, they listen to the podcast, or, you're a fellow teacher as well. Can you come in and just zoom in for half hour, 45 minutes to talk to my class? And that's exactly how I started all off, is I go in there and I say, how many of you hate math? And I just get a sea of hands. And I said, why do you hate it? And they're like, because there's no use for it. They have no idea what they're going to do with it. And I said, because it's not relevant. So as an educator, you have to make the material you're trying to teach relevant. And that's the biggest thing to me, is making it relevant to those individuals that are, coming into the class. How am I going to get this information across? How am I going to make it relevant to them? How am I going to get them to the point where they want to learn this stuff? And it's now that we teach welding, there's a purpose to it. So, Jesse, you just talked about the Pythagorean theorem and stuff and building staircases, rise over run and all that stuff. You've never used that in school because, everything was theoretical. You read this problem in a textbook and it's okay, the flagpole's this tall, little Timmy standing 16 feet away from the flagpole. What is the angle that he's looking at? Who gives a shit? Let's put up a stair section.
Right.
Let's figure out, a wheelchair ramp for, accessibility. Now that we're building something, okay, now it clicks. Now I need to know this information. Mm-hmm. And then it sinks in because now it's relevant. You're actually putting it to use. Because most of the students that are in that classroom, you're having them read through a textbook and regurgitate the information only to do a brain dump so they can absorb more information the following week. There's no practical use to it. But once, like Ryan said before, once you give them their hands back and give them a reason to learn this stuff, they're going to be begging for you to give them more information and more knowledge and stuff like that. So it's all about, making it relative to the students, making it interesting to them. And I think that's where a lot of people in education, that's where they fail, and they kind of do a disservice to the students because they're like, okay, here's the curriculum. This is what the state sent me. This is what I have to teach. And that's how they do it.
Right.
My sister takes a completely different spin. She teaches economics by making them do things and paying them. And then, she'll have a pizza party and it's okay, anybody that can afford to attend this pizza party, here's how much the tickets are. They're $35. Well, some of the other students, they didn't put forth the same amount of effort, or they got deductions, or they spent their money on something else. Well, they can't afford to participate in that pizza party. Oh, well, not everybody's getting a participation trophy this time. Yeah. So you guys are gonna have to go eat lunch in the cafeteria with the rest of the kids. The folks that saved up and they made extra money or did this, that, and the other thing, they're gonna be able to attend the pizza party. Well, guess what those other kids that didn't get to do the pizza party are doing the next time around? They're saving up their money. They're working extra. They're holding on to that. They're understanding the value, like we said earlier, the value of a dollar. They're understanding that. And these are fourth grade kids, because she's not just teaching, the boilerplate curriculum for that, that class. She's putting in, she's putting a different spin on it and making it relative to the student.
And I call it the glossary terms. If you could take base classes in college or whatever, it's basically just read the glossary terms. That's how you know it. But you have no fundamentals of what does an entrepreneur do in a business class,
right.
All the principles. And that's where it is. It's just going through the same old, here's how you teach. And it's all garble. And it's not actually detailed. You said, you said it was your sister, correct? With the economics,
Yep.
That's so much more hands-on and useful. That's for a young kid. Don't remember that. They taught us in fifth grade how to, balance our checkbooks. And I mean, that was the first time and the only time I really ever knew that, and they need to do more stuff like that. We're lacking that so hard. And I think as the four educators here and many others probably listening, we need to keep the basic hands-on going back to that. Sometimes you got to teach them how to read a resume, or like Ryan's Chipotle talks freaked me out because I used to be super introverted. So I couldn't imagine being 15 and like, hey, go talk to that business owner. I would just crawl under a table. But how many students are like that nowadays? How many adults are like that will fail a situation because they won't open their mouth?
Or how about
I would
contact?
fail the Chipotle talks. I would completely bomb that assignment there because I'm really if I'm standing in line, I'm minding my own damn business. And that's just me. Like, I don't like to talk. Like, if somebody strikes up with conversation with me, I'll talk their damn ear off. But I am not the type of person to be like, oh, hey, how's it going? How's the weather? I can't do that small talk. And now here I am running, podcasts 2-3 hours long. But it's different, because I know the people on the other end of the line, or we've got something in common. It's kind of, I stack that deck in my favor. But like, if I was just to roll up in my hometown Chipotle here and try and carry on a conversation, not happening.
We'll come up to Ohio. We'll show you how that's done at the Educator Workshop, right, Ryan? We might not go to Chipotle. We'll go somewhere a little bit better. We'll go to a real Mexican place if you like Mexican food. But no, you're right. You're talking about the boilerplate, curriculum. But how about this? So when I was in college, I went for a criminal justice, business, forensic science, and chemistry. So one of my business professors, right? I asked him, I go, what business do you own? He didn't own one. And I go, but you're going to tell me to learn business ethics and all that? So how does that work? I said, to me, so you're just going to regurgitate what you read in the book, but here I'm paying to get some, top dollar information, but you don't own a business of your own. I go, it's different when your money's in play, compared to reading about a book on what I should do here, and there. And that's the thing that, Jesse talks about, like these kids get into it. I wasn't a good high school student. I wasn't, I had my friends do my homework. When I went to the CTC that I teach in now here for drafting, design, and mechanical engineering, I barely passed here. I tell my students this. I go, I think I got like a 75 or an 80. I didn't pick my grades up until I went to college. I had one bad semester, and then after that, I had a 4.0, and I was on the dean's list and president's list. And I made it a point to be better. I had to grow up. I had to mature. But I found that passion is, it became, I hated school. And then I found out that I really liked school because I had some really good professors in college and that. And even in high school, I had two really good teachers that, that got me where I'm at here. And one was my CTE teacher. His name was Mr. Bossy, and I was a hellion. And it was funny as I ran into him a couple years ago when I was teaching, and we were at breakfast, and I walked by and I was talking to him and that. And I go, you're probably not going to believe this. I go, but I'm a teacher now. And he started laughing, and he said, you know what? He's like, I always knew you would do good. You just needed to have the time and someone to show you. He always said, work to your potential. And that's what we do with these kids. We want them to work to their potential. So if their potential is, the best, as I get back to a floor sweeper, a grinder or that, well, then that's what it is, or tire changer or whatever, and we shouldn't look down at them. They should be happy. The biggest thing I tell my kids is you should be happy in what you want to do. If you want to sell surfboards at the beach or coconuts and you're happy, so be it. The problem that I see is parents and guardians are telling these kids what they should or shouldn't be doing. I've had students that graduated in other programs that wanted to be in mine, but their parents and guardians won't let them. Because, no, you shouldn't be in welding because you're a female. I was like, what? Like, yeah. So how wrong is that? The poor students want to be here, and the parents and guardians are the ones that are supposed to guide them, you know, and we don't. That's the biggest thing is we don't let kids be kids, you know. That's something that I see. You know, my daughter goes to this school. She goes for health occupations. And the big joke was if she came to welding, you know, and I said, well, one of us would be going home crying every day. And I go, it'd probably be me, you know, but she does. She comes in and she helps. She welds. We run welding camps here and that. She comes in. And, but, you know, that's how much I believe in CTE and what I do and, you know, changing lives in that. You know, my father went to CTE. My sister went to the same one. So there's 4 generations in this school, I would say, you know, like, you know, in my family that went to the same school. It's pretty cool, you know, how I actually never thought I'd be a teacher, and here I am. And I'm not, as I said, you know, I say teacher, but, you know, we're all life changers, you are. And then someone's going to listen to this podcast, and, you know, each one of you is going to resonate with somebody out there, and you're going to change their lives one way or another. And that's what the big thing is with these educator workshops is if we get 15, 16, how many teachers come out, and then if they have 40 or 50 kids in their class, you just look at, you know, we're almost going to change the lives of 1,000 individuals at once over one summer. That's what it's about, you know, one kid at a time, one instructor at a time, one educator at a time. And that's why I believe in these workshops, and that's why I go. And I know that's why Ryan had this big push about it, and I could see you guys do it. You know, and I never met Jesse before. I've only heard of him. You know, I seen the video where Ryan was eating a donut on Discovery Channel.
Donut on a string.
You know, like that was the best. You know, and Jesse always talks about you in that, and he talks about you, Jason, as well. And it's the first time I really got to talk to Jason as well here. You know, and anybody that's a friend of Ryan and that does good is a friend of mine as well. And, you know, it's just coming together and bringing all this knowledge and passion, really, is what it is, passion. You have to have the passion. Like the running joke is with the kids is, you know, I have to take a highway to get to my school. And, you know, they'll say, oh, there goes Mr. Linko, the blue blur in my truck. You know, I'm like, oh, I'm just happy to get to school. You know, they're like, you're flying. I go, yeah, I can't wait to come to school. Like, it's always on my mind, you know, the kids. And, you know, Ryan's the same way. I know he is. You know, we're always thinking about what we're going to do, or this kid, what's this kid doing? You know, when it's a passion, it's not work. It doesn't feel like work. And I'm sure you all the same thing. You know, you're building bikes for a living. You don't see that as a job. You see that as putting your heart and soul into, you know, something that, you know, someone's going to love and cherish. You know, I seen that blue bike you had. I'm a big fan of blue. I love the blue. You had me at the blue color there, you know. But that's what it's about. And, you know, how you put a little bit of yourself in each one of those bikes, we're putting a little bit of ourselves in each one of our students. And we want them to pass it on to others. And, you know, as Ryan said before, is, you know, we want to leave this world better than we came into it. And that's my goal.
You said something perfect, Kyle, earlier, is the student that can start to begin to outweld you. And I tell my students that too, teaching part-time at Lakeland with Ryan, is they go, man, look at my weld. It's almost as good or better than yours. And I go, that's what it should be. You should be perfecting it. And the tools that Ryan gave me, you know, I excelled, and then I want you to triple and quadruple excel from me. Keep going. This is how the world becomes better in centuries. We get stronger. And that's the same theory. Absolutely. Yeah.
Like when I was at the college, one kid goes, I was teaching this one student, his name was Juan, and we were talking about something, and I was like, he's like, oh, you don't want me, he's like, you're not going to show me all the tips and the tricks, and you don't want me to become a better welder than you. And I go, whoa. I go, I do. Because I go, I'm not the best. You know, I could hold my own. And I said, I made a lot of money doing it, but I go, if you weld better than I do, I go, that looks good on me. Yeah. I mean, and that's what they don't understand. So you should be like that. So when they go out there, you know, they're like, what, we're to learn how to weld. What school you going to? So, you know, and I get a lot of people that call me, you know, like, here, can you show my person to do this or do this? You know, right now I'm working with a company that's, you know, doing a lot of military government work. And, you know, they're in the next couple of years, they're looking to hire over 300 welders. And, you know, I said, well, I can be that bridge to do that, because, you know, the men and women that I teach and that I train, they will have the skill set to do what you need. And that's the thing is, you know, they need to know that if you put the time and effort in, you should be better than me, because, you know, I'm not it. And just like, you know, Ryan and Jason, I'm sure you're the same way. You know, we all can hold their own, but these kids, I'm telling you right now, these kids at this age, they're the ones that I've seen here and at Ryan's and all these competitions. God, they're so talented. And you know what? And the big thing is, a lot of them don't even know it. that's the biggest thing that I got to instill in these kids is confidence. And I look at them, they're like, no, you're just saying that because, I have to. I'm a realist. I don't hold anything back. And my kids know that, and they'll tell you, if it's crap, it's crap, and I'm telling them, and I say when it looks good, it looks good. We had an individual in here about 3 weeks ago, and he was looking at some of the welds. And he goes to me, he's like, man, these are like furniture quality. He's like, you weld pretty good. I was like, whoa. I was like, no, that wasn't me welding. That was my students. And he goes, because we have a robot here. He's like, wait, they welded off the robot? I was like, no, that's all manual. And he's like, no, He's like, no way. Because he was there with his grandson on a tour. And they were looking to sign up. Well, sure enough, the grandson signed up. And I said, this is some of the things we teach, but I go, no, I can't replicate that. I go, I'm a terrible welder, but I'm a good educator.
I had a student previously a couple years ago, and she's now actually the secretary for our AWS section.
Okay.
So I got her brought back into that. But when she went for her interview, we actually have employers come into our facility, like when COVID's not in town, and they conduct their interviews right there on site at our school. And if they want to do a weld test, they can walk out there and work with the students. Here's the material, go ahead, set it up. Here's what we want you to do. And they can go ahead and do a weld test right there on the fly. Sometimes they prefer just bring in samples. So I had this student go in there, and she brought samples into this interview. And they wanted to see TIG on stainless, and then TIG stainless to carbon, and then stainless to Inconel. And she brought her pieces in and set them on the table and everything. And the lead welder's looking at her pieces, because they had like the lead welder and the HR rep, and then somebody else that was in there because they do like a panel interview. And the lead welder's like, I want to know where the robot is that actually made these welds. And she was kind of like laughing, like taking it as a compliment. He's like, no, I'm serious. And those were her welds. And that's the biggest thing. Like, aside from the eureka moment, and you guys all know what I'm talking about with the eureka moment, when you finally see it click in their eyes, the next best thing is when I walk into the student's booth and show them something, and they tell me, by the time I graduate, I'm going to weld better than you. Boom. That's why you're here. That gives me goosebumps. That's what I want to hear from every single student in there. And I know that not all of them are going to go off and pursue a career and become badass welders, but at least they've been exposed to it. They've learned some life skills. They've learned some work ethics. They've learned what's not for them. But then for the ones that do, rock on, go out there and kick ass, go forth and do great things is what I tell them.
And you're so right.
Not everybody's meant to be a welder.
And and that's the thing is, and you hit it there. And what I tell the kids is, the only thing you wasted if welding's not for you is some time. No one's going to take this skill trade away from you ever. And that's the thing. And you hit it, because it's not for everybody. And they're not all going to go out and be the rock stars. And there's nothing wrong with that. And a good educator knows that. Just like I get back to my teachers when I was going to high school. If I wasn't the best mathematician or English person, but how Ryan goes back to the twos and the theirs and theirs. God, man, I hated writing papers. I hated English. I was terrible at it. Every year in high school, except for my senior year, I didn't have to go to summer school for English. Every year. I think they felt bad for me my senior year and said, we're just going to graduate the kid. And it is, but they needed to know that, I wasn't going to go on and pursue that, as you said. That's the thing. We exposed them to it. We showed them what we can. If they picked up on it and they want to run with it, awesome. If not, you know what? We had a good run, is what I say. And I'll always be there for you if you need something else. Yeah. And it gets back to this one kid that I had. He sent me a DM a while back. So we do Skills USA, and I do a lot of stuff with skills. We do entrepreneurship, extemporaneous speaking, public speaking, all the welding stuff, right? So the one kid reached out to me. He's like, hey, Mr. Linko. He said, I'm just telling you, I started up a company with social media and that, and doing, promotions and all that. And he goes, if it wasn't for me being on the entrepreneurship team, I don't think I would have done this. You know what? So he's not in welding, but he learned it in welding, and that's what it's about. It's about showing them that there's more to life. And if they want to do something, how to do it. So we give them the tools, like y'all just said, how Jesse said, you go in and we all hate school. We do. I use a term, and it turns off a lot of people. I call us the misfits. And, we're team welding, but we're the misfits. But I don't mean it in a negative connotation. And a lot of people say it that way. I have a quote on my wall from Steve Jobs. We're the misfits that will go out and change the world. We're the round pegs and the square holes in that. And that's who we are. We're working with our hands, but we view the world differently. Everybody in the skilled trades views it differently. My father is probably the smartest man that I know that doesn't have that just graduated high school, in the skill trades. What he does with plumbing and pipe work and pipe fitting and that, he's like an artist. He is. And welding and that, he's our oldest qualified welder in our hall. Ryan met him. He's going to be 70 in June. And he loves it. He's been doing it for 50 some years, and he loves it. But the biggest thing that he says is we can't find the men and women that are skilled enough to want to work. That's the problem.
Just to think about when he leaves,
yeah,
all that goes away that we cannot get back.
Right.
And that is what these young men and women have to understand, is that 70-year-old man is going to, maybe one day retire and then go enjoy his life. But you cannot get that experience of 50 years back. The educator workshop we talked about, the one thing I think that all of us as educators, all four of us, are great, is I always tell everybody, when you've got a textbook, each chapter has 30 pages, 300 paragraphs, but there's only 30 sentences involved with it. Guys, I call that the fundamentals. And it's like being a baseball player. We all want to learn how to dive to catch a ball, but the first thing we got to do is learn how to catch a ball. And like I tell my students, guys, I'm going to teach you how to master how to catch your ball, or how to get a grounder, how to put your butt down, how to put your glove in the dirt. I'm going to teach you all of that. And I'm going to teach you how to be masterful at the basic fundamentals. But you then will be able to teach yourself how to dive to catch a ball. Everybody asks me, Ryan, how do you know your student is ready? How do you know that they will be able to go out and be successful? I said, guys, it's all about 1 inch. It was like with Jesse. It was all about 1 inch. How did I identify Jesse and say, Jesse, you are the guy? How did I say you are going to be the one represent? It was a 1 inch weld is what it was all about. It's when I can say, hey, Jesse, I want you to do it this way. And Jesse goes and he masters it. And then I walk into his booth and I say, hey, Jay, I need you to do this for me. Okay, you're great at that, but now I'm going to show you a little different technique, and I want you to see if you can duplicate it. And if he duplicates it within that 1 inch of what I just taught him, it's history. I don't have to do anything else, because I understand in life, the one thing as educators that we all have to agree upon is this. Please listen to me. We all are lying to our students. Everything we teach them is a bold-faced lie. Because when they get into industry and they go out to industry and say, all right, I need you to weld this widget, gadget, gizmo, and I want you to do it this way. And you say, well, that's not the way Mr. Eubank told me how to do it. You're supposed to do it that way. That guy's going to say, I don't give a damn who Eubank is. I've been a plumber and a pipe fitter for 50 years. You're going to do it this way. And if that kid cannot adapt to the way that man is trying to teach him, that guy has lost all respect and will never teach him a thing. And that's the guy that we want to understand. How do we comprehend all the information inside of his brain and take it? Because we have very little time left. And then eventually that guy's going to be like, man, kid, you're such a good listener, so good at what you're doing. I need you to do me a favor. I need you to go over and do this job. And then you're going to go over there and say, well, hell, this is how I know how to do it because I learned it in high school or I learned it in college. And he's going to walk over and says, how the hell did you do that? Well, that's how I learned it in high school and college. And they're going to say, well, why the hell did you say something? And then everything that you say as an educator is a 100% fact. But the reality of it is we ain't teaching that. And when these kids walk out because they walk out of your welding program because you're like, hey, I'm Ryan's student, or hey, I'm Linko's student, and you come out with that attitude, there it goes back to teaching life again. And then everything we taught them was 100% real when they can ultimately show them what they're capable of doing. So I always look at my students, and when I check on them, and I said, man, that kid's really done a great job on that. His welds are consistent. Let me change it up and see what he can do. And then when I change it up and he does it exactly within that 1 inch period, the rest is history. All right, kid, you got it. Now you just need to understand you don't know everything, you're able to go and adapt to the guy that's going to teach you other things. And that's the thing as educators that I want to inform other educators. I want to teach them, and I want to focus on them on the 30 sentences they need to know in that paragraph. I want to teach them the 30 sentences in TIG welding, MIG welding, stick welding, TIG welding, flux core welding, oxyfuel cutting, plasma arc cutting, carbon arc gouging, blueprint reading. Everybody goes into a 6-month process of teaching blueprints. You don't need to, because 95% of all the welding symbols are hardly ever used. Focus on the 5%, master them, and then give them the brochures that they can look up the other details to ultimately figure out what those particular blueprint symbols mean. You know, that is what I learned as me being my most effective educator and my best self, is I can't teach the book, but I surely can teach the 30 sentences. And that's what I learned to master my students at, is what are those 30 sentences? And you know what the craziest thing is? The guy that knows it the best is Jesse Srpan, because he is the magician behind the torch. And the craziest thing is, I think if Jesse looks at it now, it was mastering those 30 sentences. It was learning about polarity and what polarity was, what rod angle, what lead angle was. He learned how to master that. And then he learned all the theory behind it and was able then to educate himself in the welding booth. But if we're trying to give a kid a chapter in a book, reading the 300 paragraphs and trying for him to pick the needle in the haystack, which is what are those 30 sentences, us as educators, that's what we got to be better at. Finding what those 30 sentences are. And us as a group in those welding educator workshops is what we find out what those 30 sentences are. Because what we find out is your problem is my problem, is his problem is your problem. And everybody has the same problem. That's one of the sentences. So how do we fix it? And then all of us get together, we brainstorm, and we come up with the master plan. And then when these guys go out of that educator workshop, they're like, man, geez, oh man, where were you at? How did this work? And that is my passion for all of you. And Jason, what you're doing on the platform you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. I can't even thank you enough for, allowing me to be a part of something like this. And Kyle, I can't tell you how much you mean to me, because you are my blanket, because I'm not good at paperwork. And for you to go and say, hey, Ryan, I need this, and then my blanket at home is my wife, because without her, Kyle, I would never give you any of the information.
I know.
Because it's so tough on me, because you know what, I'll be honest with you, Rich Baczynski did a great thing for me, but it did a bad thing for me. Because he validated what I was thinking, that thing in my head, that frustration in my head, knowing that people are making those gestures behind your back and saying, hey, Rye, and that's why it's so nerve-wracking to me. I just get so frustrated. And then to have somebody like Jesse, that's my blanket in welding. I lost Jesse for a whole year.
A year, yep.
And I've been devastated by it. And because it was not that we had a line of communication that we would see each other every day, but I will tell you, the moments that I've had with him at Moe's and the lunches that we went out and talked, it's an emotional roller coaster, because so many people don't get me. So many people don't understand who I am. But I never thought a third grade reading level would be able to do and change and mold people's lives the way that I have been able to. Because today, I still feel like I don't think I'm good enough at doing what I'm doing. But to see the validation of all of you guys and the educators, literally, I've been sitting here looking at my phone. I have gotten 15 phone calls from people that want me to give them advice on something. And that's the one thing that's killed me with this dyslexia, is, having a kid in school like Jesse. Jesse will tell you, those guys, I would find who was my best reader, and they would read to me. That was the one thing I loved about education at high school. It was a judge-free zone. I had people like Jesse to write my emails. I had people like Liz Henry to write my emails. I had people to read my emails. I had those blankets that were my students, and they never judged me about it. And that was one of the cool things I can tell you that has been so inspirational for me, because I tell you right now, Jess, I have missed the hell out of you. I think about you all the time. It's an emotional wreck for me sometimes because, I feel lost. We've got 156 students here at Lakeland Community College.
Mm-hmm.
I've got 12 instructors that work under me right now. All I have is a high school education, and I'm a director or a coordinator here at the school, whatever they want to call me. The reality of it is what makes me who I am and what makes this school tick isn't Ryan Eubank. It's the heartbeat in that shop and the relationship, because we don't call our shop a weld shop. We call it the weld family, because everybody in there are the family. And quite honestly, sometimes we do have some toxic family members that ultimately get ingested into our program, and it's hard to deal with. And that's the big thing that we have to do as educators, is we have to have that support staff. We have to have these educator workshops where they're not having a company try to throw their product down your throat to buy it. We need to have open discussions so everybody understands, hey, this is real. You aren't at this alone. We got to have that support staff. And Jason, that's what's so amazing about this. Educators, welders alike, bosses, foremen, people that just need to be influenced, inspired by you unbelievable men. That's what you guys are, and that's what's so amazing about it.
Now, are you still teaching, Ryan?
Yeah, I still teach.
Like you said, you're managing like 12 different instructors, but are you still teaching?
Yeah, I still teach, yeah.
That's my hard part, is like when I came back, when I left a full-time position with Weld.com and, got back into teaching full-time at Valencia, I came back as the program manager. And then once I kind of found my replacement, now I'm kind of stuck in the office, putting new programs together, working on grants, like all this other stuff. And that's the thing that I miss the most, is being out there one-on-one with the students. So like anytime my instructor needs a day off, no problem, man, I got you covered. And I just clear my schedule out, throw my jacket and hood on, and out to the booths, That is that's my happy place. That's my zone. I get into the zone when I get in there. And I got to figure out a way to I don't know, balance those two to where I can still get in the lab and still work with the students and stuff, because that's what I enjoy doing. That's what my passion is. But to see the program that I've kind of created grow and flourish and stuff like that, I still have to handle the other side. So I was going to kind of pick your brain, we can do it offline, on how you're managing both of those to be able to get into the lab. Because my biggest problem is going to be, we're getting ready to become an accredited testing facility. So I can't test, or I can't train anybody that I then have to test, because there's a conflict of interest with ethics and all that stuff. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I still teach people, and then have the possibility of having to certify them later on down the road. And I just don't know how to get around that yet. I don't know that I'll be able to get around that. Maybe I'll just do workshops or something like that, or, something. I'll figure it out. But we can talk offline. I want to pick your brain about that a little bit.
As long as you're not the inspector, you're fine. You can teach them.
I will be the inspector.
Yeah, though. So then you can't. But you hit something on the head too. That's my biggest concern is so I was asked, like through my supervisors here, my administration, they're the ones that pushed me to get my educator leadership degree and my master's in that and certification. And my biggest fear is I don't know if I'm ready to leave the classroom. Because I have so much fun doing it. And a lot of people saying I'm ready, like they're telling me I'm ready, but I don't feel that I'm ready. And you're talking about that balance and that. And once I leave, I feel that I won't be able to get into the welding, and when you become a supervisor, or a principal, or a director and that, your duties change. And I like my duties now, but so that's a battle that goes in my mind all the time is, do I stay or do I not? Do I stay or do I not? And it's hard. And I always ask and I ask everybody that's in administration, especially some former welding instructors, is, well, when do you know? It kind of gets back to, like, how do you know when you got to get married or whatever? You just know. Well, like, I don't know if I'm just ever going to know. Some say you got to take the leap in that. So, like, and as you talked about that, that's got to be tough too, because if you're really passionate about it, but you could also see the fruits of your labor with other programs expanding in that. So now you're reaching a broader audience, and that's where my mind shifts. It's like, all right, instead of having that's
my conundrum is like, I know that I'm building something bigger than myself.
Right.
I'm building something that's going to provide. I can reach more students that way instead of the because we keep our class sizes small. We got like 13 in our program.
Okay.
So we got 13 day, 13 night. Now to expand, we're going to have an additional facility with 15 day, 15 night.
Right.
So I've doubled the size of our program. I've doubled the size of the capacity, and then we're going to open up another facility, 15 and 15. And it's like, okay, I see the need for it, because just in the Central Florida area alone, I mean, everybody's short welders. I mean, hell, even during COVID, I had companies calling me up, hiring my students that were out of school because they couldn't attend school because it was shut down. They're building freaking hand sanitizer stations. They couldn't get enough people. Or a stamping company down the road. I mean, they're hiring all of our students before they can even get a chance to graduate, halfway through the program. And it kind of goes back to what you said earlier, Kyle, is, or Ryan, teaching them the ability to follow the instructions, follow somebody else's direction. They're going to learn things in the program that aren't necessarily reality once they get out in the field. And like, I know that by building these programs, it's going to give more and more people more opportunities. And, it's going to help out the employers. It's also going to help out the students. And it's also going to help me find more instructors to kind of fill that void. Find good welding instructors, because there's a lot of lazy-ass welding instructors out there that teach from the office.
Oh, yeah.
Or, you can't find your instructor. And that's what pisses me off, is like, we just had a welding competition, same day that KWI had theirs.
Yeah, I was teasing you about it.
And I called up a couple other couple other welding schools, and I was like, hey, I just wanted to make sure you guys got my email. Oh yeah, we just really don't have anybody that's worth a crap to go out there. They just come out there and embarrass us. And it's like, that sounds like an instructor problem, not a student problem. Because if you got 20 students in a program,
you should have one or two.
They can't do a D11 structural plate. I mean, I'm not talking, this is not an elaborate freaking process here or test. Just a AWS D11 joint designation BU2A 3G 7018. So you should be able to do that as a welding student. Jason,
interrupt you rudely. I don't mean to do that.
No, go ahead.
The master recipe chef is the man in the blue flannel right now. And you're looking at a product as I'm talking right now, but Ryan has built people. I was kind of the first one to be one of his students to then become an instructor at the community college. And then through myself teaching people with Ryan, we have other students who are now 4 or 5 years younger than me teaching at the school as well. So Ryan's getting his byproduct of his quality of not getting crap instructors. He's getting the exact principles of what we all have, the mindset where, say, if you and I worked together, you would come work there. But he's extremely intelligent how he created that for all of us to become educators when we could have just went out to job fields and made a ton of money or done whatever. And like even how we do it all in the part-time, because most of us are part-timers coming in, like myself. And utilizing that has been scary in a good way, that we're just kicking ass. And because Ryan knows what he's getting. Hey, he doesn't have to ask us twice, or are we doing it right or wrong? He's getting it how he wants. So I think Ryan's the man really to ask about that, and how to take your students and push them after they've been in the field for 4 or 5, 6 years, and how to get them, if they want to be an instructor, and are they qualified to be an instructor in that seat? And that's kind of where Ryan put it for me after time.
Hey, Jay, that's exactly it. Because here's the whole problem. There's a lot of people out there that have a welding job and think that they can become a welding educator.
Oh, yeah.
The only person that can identify, that's like me. I got 12 instructors now here at Lakeland Community College. I just had a meeting yesterday with the guy and said, hey, we can't have 12 instructors here. I got to find 5 core guys to teach these classes. And they're like, well, why? I said, because here's how the education system wants to work. They'll just put an ad in a newspaper and hire whoever applies that sounds like great. And here's the problem with administrators. Administrators know nothing about what you're doing, so your resume can look as good as it wants, and you can tell the story as best as you want. And you're exactly right, Jay, when you said, we don't have a student issue, we have an educator issue. And that's the greatest thing to have as an educator issue, because it seems like it's so hard, but yet it's so easy once you start to learn the methodologies of it. And it's like Jesse. I was traveling with Jesse at 19 years old to EAA, and I had a 19-year-old kid giving seminars in front of 200 and 300 people sometimes. Everybody's like, Juan was like, hey, do you have anybody? I said, yeah, I got a kid. I said, but don't question me. Because why? There it goes back to a guy that's been doing something for 30 years, but he's been only doing it the wrong way.
Been doing it wrong for 30 years.
That's it.
Yeah.
And here's a kid that just got out of high school, and he's done it all right for 1 year, and he's very good at it. How do you know he can do this? Hell, he doesn't only just do it good for himself, but when I had other students in the class, he was a kid teaching the class. When I needed somebody to interject into my class, it didn't matter about age. Did we have a little growing up and a little thing to do? Absolutely. But you know what? He becomes a fine wine over time. And then at 23, I think it was, Jess, is that right?
Yeah.
Started teaching at Lakeland. And everybody's like, what do you got a 23-year-old kid teaching at Lakeland? I said, do you want the best product in ever? Or do you want to fail like all the other programs around here? Oh, why are they failing? Because you don't know how to ultimately get your product. And it's like I had a parent call me and say, hey, should my kid go to college for welding after he graduates my class? I literally told this to my parent just the other day. I said, if your guy's got to go to Lincoln Electric to a welding school or Lakeland Community College after my high school program, 2 years, fire me, because I didn't do my job. Any of these kids that are going to a high school program for 2 years that are in a machining program, a welding program, or whatever, and filling up these other welding schools outside of here, what'd you do for 2 years? I'll tell you what they did for 2 years. They read the chapter, all 30 pages, all 300 paragraphs. They weren't able to depict the 10 sentences, and it was just going through the motion, and guess what they got? They get tired because nobody is able to understand the concept, because they cannot filter through the seaweed in the bass pond. They're casting out there and they're just bringing back seaweed after seaweed after seaweed after seaweed, because nobody knows how to irrigate the pond. And that's what we've got to do as educators. We've got to start teaching educators how to find those 30 sentences, master the 30 sentences, to build a better product, to get rid of this dying need of a skilled trade gap. Because, guys, if we don't do it as Americans, these other countries are doing it right now and coming and taking our jobs as we speak. And they're taking the money from the working visas that they get over here, and they're sending it right back to their economy and growing their economy, while our economy is just drowning in seaweed right now. And we need irrigation. And the only way we can irrigate our pond is by building a curriculum that we can start teaching the 30 sentences so everybody can start mastering it. Look at our baseball teams and our football teams, and how many kids, their career path in life is going to go and be baseball or football or wrestling or volleyball or basketball or track and field or whatever it may be. Not saying it's a bad thing, but man, we've got a sport right here that we need to start capitalizing on, because the work is out there and the lifestyle is unbelievable right now. I can't believe how much opportunity there are for young men and women to go out there and start right out of work, right out of high school, without any college debt, at $50, $60, $70, even $100, $120, $130,000 a year. Right out of high school, 18 years old. It's not a joke. It happens every day. And everybody's saying, oh, no welder makes that, because they're not a welder. They're a skilled tradesman.
That's it.
And that's the biggest thing I can tell you. And that's the thing that inspired me. So, Jay, when you're looking for that growth of that company or that school that you're going to,
look at your former students.
Go to your former students. Go to the ones that have relationships with you, because they know how much pride passion is. And, Jay, here's the one thing I'm going to tell you. You've got to find a way to keep that aha euphoric moment going. Because if you think it's going to be writing curriculum and expanding that program, it's not.
Oh, I already know it's not there.
It's when you walk into that booth and you tell that young lady or young man, and you tell them and you hold their hand and you feel them, and when you touch them and you weld with them and they lift up that hood. And that's what I was going to try to do before my computer went bad. This is the one thing I do to all my kids. They all have to wear a stupid mask. And I always say, I can't hear you. All I need to know is that you're okay. Please take your mask down and let me see your face. Smile for me. Because that is what I miss when I'm in that welding booth. And that interaction and that eye contact, when you look at their eye and you just feel like, oh my God, they just took the best bite of pizza that they ever had, or they got it. And then you got to, the thing that I love about it is this too. It's right at the end of the day when they finally get it and they say, all right, guys, time to clean up. Let's get your stuff. Bippity bop, clean up the shop. Let's haul ass. And they're out the door, but they don't want to leave because they just got it. And then they come back the next day and it takes them 15, 20, 30 minutes to get it back. And then they come back the next day and it's boom, it's got it. And that is the aha euphoric moment. Or, hey, Mr. Eubank, hey, Mr. Becker, hey, Mr. Linko, hey, Mr. Srpan, hey, Jesse, hey, Ryan, hey, Kyle, hey, Jason, look at what I did. That is what you cannot leave. And, Jason, it might not even be, teaching a class. It's going down and giving a demonstration in front of your class. Going down and just walking through the booths and giving them the high fives and patting them on the back. And I can tell you guys the most magical thing as an educator, and if you want to be the most effective educator, it has nothing to do with welding. It has everything to do with the touch.
That's it.
It's a knuckle touch, a fist bump, a handshake, a high five, a hug, or just a grasp of their electrode and being able to teach them. The other day, me and my students, we walk every morning before school. I got a bunch of them that do it. We wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They get out there at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and we walk about 3.5 miles every morning. And the other day, I was inspired, and a guy called me and said, hey, Ryan, can I go on a walk with you? And his name's John Gardenia. He's a guy, he's writing a book about me right now. We're 8 chapters in it and 25,000 words. And we went on this walk. And we're standing there waiting for everybody to get out of the car and get dressed, and all the doors closed, and we're just standing there for a moment. And it was the coolest thing. We heard the woods wake up in the morning. It was the first bird chirp. And those kids were like, wow, did you hear that? It was a little, I don't know, robin, whatever it was, but it was the first chirp. And then the woods just lit up, and then we went off on a walk and walked down by the river. And I started to think about that. And the one young lady said, man, that bird chirp this morning, I've never heard that before. That was so amazing. And I looked at her and I said, guys, stop. Let's listen. The creek was running. The wind was blowing. The birds were chirping. The squirrels were running across the ground. It was awesome. I said, guys, let me ask you a question. How amazing was that bird chirp in the morning? I said, just think about all your friends, family. It might even be you. The first chirp you hear in the morning is get your ass out of bed, get going, you're going to be late, you're lazy. That's the first chirp in the morning. I said, guys, how impactful is it to go out on this walk every morning and to listen to the woods wake up, and it was a bird chirp that woke you up and got you energized for the day. So guys, the way that you get out of that environment where it's not a negative chirp in the morning, but a positive chirp, is you've got to find a career, a path that will give you the right opportunities to gain things that you want that will help you make you happy. And I'm not saying it's money, but I'm saying it's something that's going to enlighten you every day and want to go to work. And Jay, that's the one thing I cannot stress to you, because I've wrote curriculum for Texas A&M. I wrote curriculum for Lincoln Electric, Cincinnati State University. I wrote for Lakeland Community College. I've done 3 or 4 different high school curriculums. I helped write curriculum out in Oregon. Here's the one thing I'm going to tell you. It gets so overwhelming. We just built a welding school from a 16 booth to a 32 booth. They're talking about building another 7,000 square foot fabrication lab here at Lakeland Community College. The expansion is great, but I'm going to tell you, your happiness is more important. And whatever keeps you happy, you've got to make sure you have some of that in your life. And one of the things I'm going to tell you that was happiness for me is when I had that relationship, and when me and Jesse and I'd walk in here and we'd go out to lunch. And that's something I will tell you, when it happens again in a couple weeks, it will be one of the most euphoric moments of my life, because I want Jesse to know that I'm here and I've got his back. And win, lose, or draw, you know, there are people in your life that are going to upset you, and they're going to deter you, and they're going to try to tear you down because you are Jesse Srpan. You are Kyle Linko. You are Jason Becker. I am Ryan Eubank. We got to not worry about the negativity and only worry about the positivity. And what brings positive in your life is these young men and women that we're changing their lives. Because Kyle Linko says it the best. We're not teachers. We're not educators. We're life changers. Doesn't matter if they're not welders or whatever. We can make them great citizens for our community. And that's how we build our community. That's how we build our nation. And that's the one thing, guys. We are one nation under God. And that's the thing I'm going to tell you about more than anything. These educator workshops, guys, it is going to be about welding. It is going to be about how to be a better educator, how to get theory across, but it also is going to be a life-altering event that we are going to talk about life and problems that happen in the class and how do we correct those problems. Because I'm going to tell you, this is so exciting for me. This is a new adventure. Me and Jesse, I started this 4 years ago with Oregon. I brought Jesse out last year. I told my idea to Kyle. Kyle has been on me and on me and on me and on me. Yeah, I would have loved to got it out a lot longer, a lot farther. You know, getting it out here just in the end of April, beginning of May, you know, it's kind of a short window. But I'm going to tell you, with the team that we have, we're going to change the world, guys. We're gonna give them an opportunity to, you know, show up, shut up, and do your job. And we're going to give them an opportunity how to be the most effective educators. And that's the thing I'm telling you that's so important is, man, I never thought in a million years that this would be my life. This is what I would be doing. And I started at Lincoln Electric at 18 years old. Bill West and Joe Colossus seen something in me that I just couldn't even believe in myself. And I still don't believe in myself today. And I think it's so amazing, Jason, what you're doing with your program down there and how you're growing it and how you're expanding it. Kyle Linko, what you do up there in your school and your organization and what they allow you to do and the opportunities that you're giving your students is amazing. And Jesse, your inspiration with, you know, your social media, your bike building, your company you're doing, and, you know, the education. All these kids are always asking about Jesse Srpan. When's he coming back? Well, I'm going to tell you, heads are going to roll when they come back because
in 2 weeks I'm back. I hope they're ready.
I hope they're ready. And Jesse, and that's the thing about it, don't let one individual or a group of individuals tear you down. Just be Jesse. And it's just like you, Jason. Just be Jason. Kyle, I know that you're going to be Mr. Linko. You're going to be Arnold, and I'm going to be Danny DeVito. You're Danny DeVito, and I'm Arnold. I don't know what the hell that is, but that is so awesome. But the reality of it is, you know, that's who we are. And I think that's the craziest thing. You know, a lot of people have tried to say, Ryan, you can't do this. Ryan, you can't do that. My wife, she's the greatest woman in the world. She says, don't tell Ryan that.
Stand back and watch.
Like, why? Why? Ryan's so loud. He's obnoxious. What the hell? Why? Don't tell Ryan to do that. He'll be twice as loud, twice as obnoxious, and twice of a pain in the ass. Just let Ryan be Ryan, and it will be okay.
And that's it, right? And that's what you're talking about. And that's what, you know, these two other gentlemen and myself is. And you talked about it before with education. This is the first job that I could actually be me. You know, I'm a little quirky. I'm a little weird. Some people say I dress a little differently or whatever. You know, I have a different vision of things than that, just like you do, just like Jason and Jesse does. You know, we all bring something different, and we're all us, though. We don't pretend to be who we're not. And that's, you know, that's a big thing that, you know, these educators need to know. You know, you're not going to be Mr. Miller or Mr. Lincoln or Mr. Esau. You know, you got to get away from that. And that's what the curriculum, you know, where we shoved it down their throat. You got to be you. And once you can be you in your classroom or wherever, the kids will see that. The kids will see right through you. They know if you're facade or not. You know, I sing, I dance in my class. Big thing with me is every day before my students leave, they give me a fist bump. And if I'm outside, they'll come get me. You know, our emotions run very, very high here in the welding lab. We're a family. You know, when I played football, that was our thing. You know, we're a team, we're a family. You know, and I could never understood was if someone went off sides, why everybody had to run laps, or, you know, a wide receiver dropped the ball. There's a lineman running laps. It's the same concept in my welding program. If someone does something stupid, we all do something stupid, we all get penalized. You know, we're only as strong as our weakest welder or student in here. You know, when we're on the top, we're all on the top. When we're on the bottom, we're all on the bottom. It's not always sparks and smiles here, I say, in the welding lab. And 1 minute I'll be yelling. Well, I can't say yelling. I'll be talking very, very loud. But before we leave for the end of the day, we get a fist bump and they know it's going to be all right. You know, it's like goes back to Ryan's chirping. You know, they get that negativity, but before they leave, I want to make sure there's some positivity in them. I'm all about optimism. You know, and that's the big thing is if we're optimistic, even on our worst days, our darkest days and that, you know, we'll be all right. Everybody views the world in hatred. So I have a saying, don't hate, replicate. You know, a lot of people don't like me. They don't like Ryan. You know, they probably don't like you guys for what you do and and what they don't see is, you know, I had this conversation the other day. So we went down to Kentucky to compete, right? So I'm going to be honest with you, a couple of my colleagues wanted to know why Mr. Linko got to go on a field trip. So I fired back. It wasn't a field trip. A field trip should go there for fun, and, you know, you don't prepare like we did for this competition, right, Ryan? I said a field trip, you don't spend 16 hours a day practicing, 1,600 test plates practicing with kids and having people come in and train. To me, that's not a field trip. So people don't see that. People don't see the hard work and effort that we all put into our welding programs or into our students. They only see the rewards. They want to have the fruit, but they don't want to put the labor in. You know, and that's what bothers me. And that's where, you know, Ryan says we're misunderstood. We are, because they don't see that. They don't see the countless hours, or during the summer, you know, how teachers only work 8 to 3, right? And they have 2.5 months off in the summer. I can't even tell you the last time I had a summer off. The running joke was when we went down to nationals 2 years ago, my student goes, he's like, hey, I gave you a vacation. You were away from the school for 5 days. I was like, I was with you. I go, how is that a vacation? You know, like, and I loved every second of it. But I was still at my school. There was 5 days in the whole summer I wasn't at the school. And 2 of them was the 4th of July and something else. But I was here running welding camps. I was here getting ready for the next school year and that. And that's stuff that, you know, if you're passionate about, you're going to do. And it's like these educator workshops that we talk about. You know, anybody can read a book. You know, if you're an educator, you can regurgitate all that nonsense. What you're going to learn is the stuff that we're going to show you is the stuff that you're not going to find in the textbook. You know, we're going to show you, hopefully you get that spark. And when you're all up there, you have it. You know, like, Jason, you have an awesome platform to disseminate all this, you know, what you do and all your followers and that. Same thing with Jesse and that, you know, all the accolades you have and that. And, you know, you get this out there, and it speaks volumes to Ryan and himself and what he wants to do. You know, and me just being part of this is great. And I have been on Ryan about it, you know, and here's the thing that I tell Ryan, and I've been with Ryan a lot. And, you know, if you hang out with Ryan enough, you're going to see his phone blows up all the time, right? It's kind of like my phone. You know, when I hear something, and this bothers me, and it was one of my students, the first thing they would always do is ask me a question, right? So I'd fire back, I'm doing well, thanks for asking. You know, no one ever asked me how I'm doing. You know, it's always, can you answer this? Can you answer that? You know, and one thing I don't do is I see a lot of people do it. I'm going to be honest with you. I think they take advantage of Ryan. And I never, ever, ever, ever ask Ryan for hardly anything ever. You know, because everybody asks him for something, and that's all they want. They want to take from Ryan. right, Ryan? You can be, and I tell them that. They just want to take. They don't want to give nothing back. And I'm sure all you guys seen that, and I'm not like that. I like to give. And Ryan knows that. I think that's why we do. We click a lot in that aspect. And that's where, again, that I tell them is, these educator workshops, we're going to give, and hopefully they give back to us. Because each shop that we hold, or with all these welding instructors or men and women in the skilled industry, they're going to come. We're going to start taking from them. That's the big thing. We're going to give, but we also want to take, and it's our turn to take. It's our turn to see what are you doing, and that's a big component of this. So when everybody starts giving, everybody can start taking as well. So if you just come in with the mindset of I just want to take, for me, that's not the proper mindset. I want you to know when you sign up for these workshops, be willing to be open-minded, but be willing to, you're not going to be embarrassed if you ask these questions, but give out what you do. So we could all learn. How it goes back to the shotgun thing, the 12 gauge, yes, shield and middle arc welding, that. It's great for everything. You want a full choke, modified choke. We're just going to put a 3.5 shell in there and let it fly. All right, we'll just run a 532, 60, 10 on 300 amps and cut whatever we want with it, And that's the thing that I think a lot of people in education, they miss as well, is they just want to take, but they don't want to give back, and that's what the three of you do. You're giving back, and you have the right platforms to do that. And I think this is the beginning of something really big with these workshops, is we're going to start giving back a lot. And, people are just going to not come in just taking everything, but they're going to want to be part of it and to give back. So, again, that's just my take on it and that. So I'm happy to be here. I was happy to be invited to come on in that, and got to meet, Jesse, via Zoom. As I said, I heard a lot about you. And again, anybody that can make Ryan eat a donut off a fishing pole, I always tell that story. That's so funny. I was just like, only Ryan. And
you want to know the craziest thing about that? That was not planned, was it, Jesse?
No, we have other ones that were never filmed, or they were not planned even on that. But man, I'm going to tell you what, for a bunch of people that came from Hollywood, they were pretty shocked at us. We were like the circus came into their town, even though they came in our town. Every day was ridiculous shit that we would do to them and freak them out, because we purposely leave our microphones on and stuff. And they're just like, they'd be looking at us like, your microphones are. We're like, yeah, we just wanted you to kind of get a feel for who we are, more than this philosophical BS we're spewing all the time. We're kind of crazy, And
that's the thing. You're just being yourself. And a lot of people in education can't be yourself. And Ryan mentioned before about my school, my administrators, we're very progressive here. But you know what? They allow me to be me. They don't micromanage me. They support me and my students, or my students and myself. They give us a lot of opportunities. And the reason is because they see the success that we have here with the students in that. And, and as I said, I'm very, very lucky, because I've been to a lot of schools around this country. And there's a lot of administrators and teachers in that are, they're handcuffed on what they can and can't do. And that's another thing too, is, we're going to get some of these educators that come up and, they're going to say, hey, I only have a $5,000 budget and I got to do all this and that. How do I get all this done? Well, Ryan's good at that.
I can definitely show you how to do that.
Yeah. And, here in my program, someone asked me, what's my budget? And I'm not here to brag, but we don't have one. It's what we need to get our students to where they need to be. My lab, I have $1 million worth of equipment sitting on my floor. We're one of the most advanced welding labs at a high school level in Pennsylvania. We do stuff that no other school does. And that's just having the vision, the foresight, and the backing of not only my OAC, but my administration. Just this year alone, we spent $100,000 on equipment. Last year was another $100,000. Since I've only been here 7 years, and I think I spent well over $1 million. My first year here, our director got hired, and he came down with a blueprint. And our school is under renovation. He's like, here, design the lab like you want it. I'm like, well, I'm not even sure if I'm even going to stay here. But sure, let me take a look at it. And just to have that confidence in a brand new welding instructor to say, here, design this lab. And then, you get partnered up with my craft advisory that, we built from the ground up. There's 40 men and women that are on that. We're very dynamic. And that's the people I say we surround ourselves with the best. Just like the four of us here, That's what you got to do. And you start with 4, then it's 8, then it's 12, then it's 16. And I keep going back to you, Jason. As I said, I really want to be a part of your, that other group that you're doing with the skilled trades. I'm more than just a welder. And what you're trying to do with the skilled trades is phenomenal, because I remember going to high school, and y'all remember that, right? The only way you can make money is if you go to college. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I thought, that was the only way I was going to do it. And here's the funny story is the more my parents pushed me away from the skilled trades, the more I wanted to be in it. And then one day I just stopped from running from it, and I just turned around and just let it hit me. So how I became an educator was I went to welding school, and I already knew how to weld. That I went to welding school for the theory. So I went the reverse route. I want to know the whys and the hows and to do this. So when I was leaving welding school, the one instructor said, he's like, "You're pretty good at this. You should become a teacher." I was like, "Get the hell out of here. I'm not going to become a teacher." And they're like, "No, seriously. They're like, you ever think about teaching, down at the school we're at?" I was like, "No, you guys are too far away. You're, about an hour out." I was commuting every day, running my own business. I was like, "No, I'm doing this." So the local college had a part-time opening. I applied there, and it has been downhill since. And then now, when I was at the college, I hired a program director, and then now my former student is teaching there. So it gets back to, as I said, if you're looking for quality welding instructors, reach out to your network, your students, the people that's where you're going to get them from. Because I'm telling you, when I was down there and they wanted me to become full-time and I didn't want to do it, so I had to find a full-time welding instructor. Some of the applicants I have one guy that hadn't welded in 3 years. He's like, I just threw my name in. I just thought you'd hire me. I didn't think I had to take a weld test. Whoa. So you get back to, there's the guys that want to sit in the classroom on YouTube and teach. You're not going to take a weld test? Are you crazy? Like, come on now. Like, that's the mentality that some of these people have. And it gets back to HR. HR doesn't know any better. Here, this is what we're looking for because we ripped this ad off of LinkedIn. Let me use this. And then all of a sudden, all right, well, they check the boxes. That's great, but that doesn't mean they can weld worth the liquor. They can even explain something to somebody. And again, you can be the best welder ever. You could be Jesse James or whoever you want to be, but if you can't educate somebody or get that information to them, you're no good. So it gets to, like how Ryan uses his students and I use my students to teach other students. Because then I know as if my students can teach somebody else how to weld, they know it, and I'm sure you're the same way and everything else. Just like, Ryan has Jesse teach, and now we brought him in at 23 years old. And it's funny is because the welding student that teaches at the college, he kind of, he replaced me, which is fine, is he was 23 or 24. And you know what? I feel good about that because you know what? I was good enough to have one of my former students train the next generation, and that's really what it's about. We want to do that. And it gets back to, as I said, these workshops, what we're trying to do with this welding league and everything else is, there's a lot of things that are going on and they're going to happen fast. Right, Ryan?
Absolutely.
And,
absolutely.
Let me ask you guys, you three guys, this, because this is all going to make us laugh and other educators. How many of you thought you'd be sitting here 10, 15, 20 years later, you'd be talking about educator workshops and educating people when we all came from where we came from and our backgrounds and our roots?
Never. Oh my God. If some of my former teachers knew what I do now, they would probably be like, what the hell did the world come to? I'm telling you, I was a straight hellion. It's funny because my mom, every time I see her and I talk to her, she always goes, "Yo, you still doing that teaching gig?" "Yeah, Mom, I'm still doing it." "You like it?" "Yeah." They're still keeping you?" "Yeah, like it, and I laugh. And, and that's what it is. Because even like my mom's like kind of shocked at it. And some of my friends are like, "Holy God, you're a teacher?" "Yeah." It's crazy. Because I would never have thought.
Staircase lately?
What's that?
Jesse, did you go sled riding down a staircase lately?
I need to, When Ryan left, oh man, I shouldn't even share this. When Ryan left school when I was a junior going to be a senior, talk about being a hellion. I didn't really want to deal with the instructor. Ryan was like the parent I always wanted, and we had the angry stepdad come in, And I remember we sent Ryan's just like the time of like all the Blackberries and Droids and iPhones. There was a video of me on a staircase that Ryan built for a catwalk, and I took a toboggan sled at the top of it, came flying down, almost hit my head on the bottom of a mill. So in the video, the instructor's screaming to me, "Don't do that again, Srpan. I'm serious." I'm running up the stairs. I'm like, "This one's for you, Eubank." And I freaking went down it again. And Ryan's like, "You freaking lunatic, man." But that's just, we weren't the perfect students, but here we are now teaching students to be perfect. So
you know what? We're perfect for our environment. And we're
Yep.
perfect for the kids that are in front of us. And that's the thing is, you know, everybody looks at, you know, well, we have to be perfect. Well, we're perfect for what we're due. You know, like perfection doesn't exist, but, you know, we don't fit the mold, I'll say. But we do.
Yeah.
You know, we found where we fit. We found our niche or this and that, and this is who we are. And all our life experiences, you know, going down that sled, you know, and that stairway, you can relate. You can tell that story to the kids. Because so I had an essay I gave to my sophomores that was due yesterday. It was about respect. And it was a 750-word essay because they did some things they weren't supposed to do here. Well, a couple kids did, so we're all punished. And a lot of it came down to is, you know, the respect that my students know that I have for them. And by being the realist that I am and sharing some of the stories that I have, you know, that's the thing is I don't sugarcoat nothing. I tell them my faults because I want them to learn from them. I tell them when I was here what a terrible student I was. But that's the thing with education is I don't lie. I'm not here to be put on a pedestal. You know, because that's another thing too is, you know, a lot of these people put educators on pedestals and they think they're like the ultimate dictators and that what they say is gospel and God. And I'm wrong. If a student asks me a question, I don't know. You know what are we going to do? Well, we're going to Google it, or I'm going to call one of my friends that are a lot smarter than I am in welding and we're going to figure it out. Or if it's not in welding, you know, do this. And a perfect example of that was when I was with Ryan out at his shop and a gentleman asked Ryan a question, and next thing you know is I have one of my craft advisory members. He's a weld engineer from Ohio State he graduated with. Remember, Ryan? And then there we are. We're answering the problem that came in. And that's what, you know, we have to show these students, and that is it's all right to be wrong. It's all right to make mistakes. But you know what? We're going to learn from them. You know, you're not supposed to know everything. Like these kids come in, they're like, I want to learn everything about welding. I'm like, good luck, because I don't even know everything about welding, and I don't even want to. I don't want to learn everything about welding. So, you know, we're in the wrong program then. You know, it's about finding that information and how to find that information, how to sift through that. But it's about those stories, you know, like, and we all share stories to our kids and, you know, they're like, oh, you know, or I did this on the weekend. Guys, girls, that was cool like 80 years ago when, you know, my grandparents did it, my parents did it, I did it. And they look at you like, really? Yeah, like, yeah, we did that. That's nothing new. You know, and that's where it comes back to the, you know, forming those bonds and those relationships. I mean, just look at, you know, look at here with Ryan and Jesse, you know, that's the bond and relationship that will not be broken. And we have that with many of our students. And Jason, I'm sure you have them with yours as well, you know, and that's what being a real educator is. You know, like if you look back at, you know, how many educators or how many teachers in our past that we still talk to, I don't talk to any of them. I never did. But I can tell you how many students every year that I still talk to. Before COVID hit, once a month or twice a month, every Saturday, I would go to dinner with former students. You know, we'd go out to dinner, share our things, you know, what they're doing, this and that. And a lot of my former students, they're in supervisory roles and they're looking for welders. So they'll hire my current students. They'll be like, yo, do you have anybody good? Yeah. They'll be like, yo, can I come in and, you know, so what they'll do is they'll ask to come in and talk to the kids. But what the kids don't know is they're actually setting up like mini interviews, you know, so they're doing it on the sly and, you know, they're coming in and, you know, seeing their work ethic, this and that. Cause I can tell them how good they are. Well, they want to come in and see, you know, I can be like, hey, you know, Ryan's a rock star. They're like, all right, well, let me come in and talk to the class and see what's up. So they'll bring their gear in and that. They'll be like, yeah, can I weld with them? Yeah, you can weld with them. So they'll come in to weld and, you know, they'll give them that 1-inch window. I call it the salesman window, you know, 2 inches I use. And, you know, they'll come in and be like, all right, do it this way, do it that way. You know, and they do. And they'll be like, all right, this kid is, you know, we can get this kid a job. He's employable. And the next thing you know, I'll be like, all right, they'll be graduating and be like, or you know, they'll be whatever. I'll be like, so-and-so that came in, he wants to hire you or they want to hire you. Oh, really? Yeah. And that's what it's about, you know. And like I said, we all have those moments. We all have that. And it's all about the connections. And I think that's what's really missed. And I think that's what was really missed during COVID. And I think a lot of teachers were afraid to say that, you know, the number one thing they missed or what they needed was their students, you know, because we're supposed to be the rock. And you know, and it's sometimes, you know, the students are our rock and they don't know that. But if you're true with you and the kids, they know and you know that we need them each. And that's what, Jason, I say is, unfortunately, the higher you climb up in education, the farther you get away from the classroom. And I'm seeing that. And that's what I don't want to say I'm afraid of, but I am at times, because I want to get those daily fist bumps. I want to be on that roller coaster of emotional highs and lows. They're lows. We have some really, really high highs, and we have some really, really low lows. And, they're the things that I'm afraid that I'm going to miss,
Yep.
And it's something that, as I said, I battled with, and I talked to a lot of people in that, and Ryan, he handles it very well. And, it's a balancing act.
All right, everyone, this concludes part 1 of episode 172. I will have part 2 available by Wednesday this week. Thanks for listening to another episode of the Arc Junkies podcast. Remember, if you're listening on iTunes, please swing by and drop a review. I definitely appreciate it. And if you're enjoying the show, share it with a fellow student, coworker, or anyone else who you think would benefit from the content. Stay safe out there, and until next time, make every weld better than your last.